so excited to invite our next guest on stage. She's going to offer us a perspective of what it means to be part of the VFX community in Montreal and in the ecosystem, plus some lessons she's learned along the way in her experience working on some films like The Avengers and from the people in the biz. So Stephanie Ross is the senior production operator at TD. She's been a VFX editor at companies like Frontier Visual Effects, Double Negative, and Outpost VFX. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Campus Party Canada. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm nervous, but I'm excited to be here.
Nervous? No.
I work in visual effects. I'm behind the camera. I got there for a reason.
Right. Okay, so maybe we can start with that just to make it easy. Can you tell me a bit about your journey to this stage?
Sure.
Your work history and just what you've been working on lately.
Sure. So I'm originally from Scotland. And I started at university in Glasgow, but I decided that ultimately university was not for me because it was very theoretical, write dissertations, write essays, thesis. And I wanted to get my hands on a camera, get my hands on Final Cut or Premiere. So I left university and I went to college, which I think here is probably equivalent to Cégep. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm unsure. But so I graduated from college. It was all very practical, 90% practical, and I decided that I really loved editing and being, like I said, behind the camera in post-production. So then I was trying to get a job down in London, because obviously it's the main hub in the UK. It's one of the main hubs in the world for film. And I did a lot of mega busing in between Glasgow and London, back and forth, and many night trains. And eventually I got a one-week job as an intern just to help cover somebody's vacation. And while I was doing this job, they sent me on an errand, because that was my life for a week, doing errands. So they sent me on an errand to take some documents to a solicitor's company. So I was doing that, and I got in the elevator, and then the elevator broke down.
Oh.
So I was stuck in this elevator, and there was one other guy there, and we obviously got talking, because what are you going to do when you're stuck in an elevator for 45 minutes? And he worked at MPC. And this building was shared with MPC, and we were talking, and he's like, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm being a runner right now, I really want to work in film. And he's like, oh, you should email this woman and tell her I told you to email. And I did. And I guess the rest is history. That's how I got into visual effects, 10 years ago.
This is like a fated encounter. So you never know where you're going to get your first job, I guess.
Right place, right time, right?
And then from there, what was your journey like? You were in the UK, and then you made your way over to Montreal. How?
Yeah, so I started as a runner in MPC in London. So it was, cleaning the dishwashers, cleaning the coffee machines, collecting everybody's dirty dishes, giving them dinner, blah, blah, blah. And then I went to be a production assistant, decided I'm not made for spreadsheets. So then I moved department again, and I ended up as a VFX editor, which is where I was like, okay, I found my calling for now. And eventually I ended up at DNAG, and when DNAG were opening their office in Montreal, they wanted people from my department to go, so I was like, I'll volunteer as tribute, and
wow.
I ended up here 4 years ago now. So
wow, okay, great. And I'm curious, we just saw this great video of Montreal in the summer. What you see is the difference in tech hubs between a place like London and a place like Montreal? Why is Montreal unique, or what do you notice about the differences between these two tech poles?
I feel like it's a lot more relaxed here.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like everybody's a bit more chill here.
Okay.
London could be intense, but I guess the whole city could be intense. So
Right.
I guess because we're there, it just all rubs off on everybody.
Gotcha. But there's a bit of joie de vivre in
Yeah.
Montreal. Okay, got it. So when we were doing a content call, you mentioned something that I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned that you're the only woman working in this highly technical place that you are at the moment. And I'm curious how it is to be the only one, and maybe what ideas you have for the industry in general to get more women and maybe non-binary people and queer people also in the door of these spaces.
Yeah, well, I think events like this are definitely important because I was talking to somebody else who was on stage a bit earlier that also works at MPC, and she has no idea what my job is, even though we're in the same company. So, I mean, that's how it can be. I had no idea about visual effects until I fell into visual effects, thanks
Right.
to that elevator ride. But being the only woman, I've actually find it's been fine for me. Like, I haven't experienced any overt sexism or exclusion, for me anyway. I can't talk for every woman in the industry. So I'm quite fortunate, and also I'm one of the seniors on the team, so it's really nice to be in this position where the other guys are coming to me, they respect me, they'll come for my opinion, and just because of me as a person, not because they don't feel anything against me because I'm a woman.
Right. Yeah. But do you think that there is anything that the VFX industry, should be thinking about doing or initiating to try to sort of maybe aim for parity?
I read a statistic earlier this year about how only, I think it's under 30% of the VFX workforce are actually female.
Okay.
And a lot of the women end up in more admin roles, like they'll end up in production or HR. And I think it's important to help like the women that are in the artist positions or in the technical positions like I am, and give them a voice and help them, because I feel like generally in the world, like males can be a lot more aggressive with like self-promotion and taking credit for things and just pushing themselves forward. So it can be easy to be like shoved to the back.
Right.
So I think it's important to like help these people.
Maybe build some confidence.
Exactly, and
confidence
support them. And be
gap.
like,
Yeah. So for the women who are interested in the industry listening today in the room and also online, what message do you have for them about sort of getting that confidence and going for it? And why should they really look at this industry as a space for them?
I mean, if you're passionate about film and visual effects, and you have to be in our industry, because I won't lie, it's hard work, it's long hours, but we're all in this because we love it. Like I love my job, so I'm very like I don't mind. But I think it's also important to take your time. Don't try and just be like, okay, I need to be promoted, I need to be promoted. Like, take your time, get to know where you're at, because then I think it really benefits you as you progress, because you end up being the person with the most knowledge, because you're like, I fully understand where I just came from, I know the ins and outs of this pipeline, I know the ins and outs of this software, and you get to know the team. So
Yeah.
I think that's like highly beneficial for everybody. There's no point like just trying to speed your way up and be promoted just for the title if you're going to get there and be like, well, I'm very unsure and I don't have a clue, which
Yeah.
I think can easily happen as well.
Okay. So maybe next we could talk a little bit about the nitty gritty of your job. VFX for people who might not know. Like what's a day in the life? What kind of skills do you need? What kind of responsibilities do you have?
I mean, I think the main skill, not to be a cliche, but the main skill is definitely communication.
Okay.
Because basically, as a product CD, we're managing a ticket queue. So we're the support for the rest of the company. So I think as long as you tell people, yes, I see your issue, I understand it's important, but we're very busy because there's only 7 of us globally. As long as you're telling them, I see you and I understand it's an issue and we will get to it, it's fine. Because the second you just let their ticket just sit there and don't respond, that's when people get a bit angry
Okay.
and impatient.
Fair enough. So good communication, probably a lot of project management,
Yeah.
managing expectations. So I'm curious if you could tell us sort of about your career highlights. You worked on the Avengers.
I did. I did a little stint in stereo for 2 years, so that's some 3D conversion.
Okay.
So we did a lot of the Marvel movies, like the Avengers, which is very cool to say I have my name on the credits there.
Yes.
I remember going to the cinema when I was a teenager and being like, one day, and it actually happened.
Okay, so you've always had this dream.
Yeah, I used to work in a movie theater too, actually, and I would be the one cleaning up the popcorn after everybody had left. I'm like, maybe one day my name will be up there, and now it is. So
Okay, so you've seen a lot of movies in your life.
yeah, though weirdly less since I started in visual effects than before.
That is weird. Yeah.
I guess I spend my whole day at screens. So
But it's like one of those things. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell who said, you need 10,000 hours. So you were already putting in your hours as a, movie theater worker. I'm curious, my next question is sort of about the future, because, you know, theaters and movies are now being streamed and distributed in such different ways. How do you see, you know, the VFX industry also evolving with the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's really quite unpredictable because everybody has said that 3D and AR and VR is the future.
Okay.
But then everybody also said that within our industry that we could never work from home. And then look what happened. We can work from home and we're still producing these massive blockbuster movies and it's been fine. There haven't been
Right.
any issues. So I know there's a lot of progression happening with automation with
Okay.
certain tools, but at the end of the day, it's a visual, so you'll always need humans with eyes to
Right.
ultimately approve things at the end of the day and be involved in the process.
Okay.
The robots will not take our jobs yet.
And for those who are listening and maybe want to, you know, get in there, what should they be studying right now besides, you know, watching a lot of movies? Like, where should they be thinking about applying themselves? I mean, you said you dropped out of university and went to college. I love that. I think sometimes, you know, we forget that there are these really technical programs that aren't, you know, typical. So where do you advise people who are curious about this industry to start on the ground level?
It's a hard one for me to say since I did drop out of university and I did just fall into the visual effects industry while knowing nothing about it. So I guess try and do some research if it is something that you think you would like to be interested in, because there are so many departments out there that people just don't have a clue.
Okay. And I just wanted to mention, by the way, that if any of you have questions, you can reach us via Slido, or you can raise your hand and I'll open the floor to you if you have any questions about getting in VFX on the ground floor. I'm curious, you know, recently what you've been reading, watching, or listening to in the VFX scene that's really inspired you or really sort of given you any aha moments about, you know, the future is unpredictable, but maybe where you think, you know, there's some good work being done or what people should be looking out for. I'm curious what inspires you or continues to inspire you in this space.
I mean, I'm not even about the visuals at this point. In my job, I'm all about pipeline configuration and all the back-end things, and that's what I'm really enjoying. Especially, I've only been a ProdOps TD for the last 4 months now.
Okay.
So it's a massive learning curve, and I think that's what's exciting about visual effects. There's always going to be something new you can learn, and if you feel like you've leveled out of your role, you can jump on to the next one. There's like so
Okay.
many opportunities, and now I'm learning a lot more. And I've already been in the industry for 10 years, and there's a lot more for me to learn.
Yeah. Someone was talking, or I think I accidentally, and I'm so sorry to whoever put in the question about a director named Kevin Ferg. Is that for you? I don't know. But who is your favorite, who's been the favorite, you know, director or favorite person that you've worked with in these big films? Any names you want to drop that you enjoyed?
When I was a runner, actually, I got so psyched because I was pulled in to work a Saturday shift, which I wasn't psyched about. But then it turned out a client was coming in, and it was Tim Burton.
Oh.
And I was so excited.
Wow.
And that was just as a runner, so it's sometimes worth it. So
Okay,
some of
and-
my best experiences were as a runner, so
Nice. And what is he like in real life?
really nice,
Okay.
very polite. And he actually spoke to us. Some people would make their assistants, tell us their coffee order.
Right.
He actually spoke to me, which
Oh,
was
that's good. Okay, anonymous questioner, thank you for putting the question back in. How was it to work with Kevin Feige? Is that name I'm saying correctly? Feige.
I'm unsure who that is.
Oh, so maybe this question was
apologies.
not for you. I'm sorry, we've got the Kevin Feige?
I'm unsure.
Oh,
And it's not anybody I've worked with directly.
I missed that. Can
Yeah.
you, sorry?
Kevin Feige,
He's the CEO
Marvel.
of Marvel.
Well, obviously, I never spoke to him.
Okay, there's like a hierarchy, you know,
I'm like behind the scenes of behind the scenes, so.
Okay, so unfortunately, no direct contact, unlike Tim Burton. Fair enough, but yeah, I guess you know the Avengers are such a huge franchise, and Marvel has captured the attention of everybody. And I'm curious if you, after watching all these films and working on all these films, if you have figured out, what is the formula or the secret sauce that makes a movie explode in public consciousness? Like, have you figured out what it is about certain titles or certain, narrative arcs that really make the audience go wild? Or is it random? Like, is there a secret? Curious.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there must be a perfect recipe out there. For example, I mean, I don't know how many people have seen Dune yet, but it was incredible, and the remake was incredible, and I guess it just came down to great teams at every single level of the movie, not just visual effects, like everything.
That's true. That's true. I think, yeah, that makes the dream work for sure. We have another question here, actually, about your experience now when you're watching movies. Do you enjoy them, or do you just see the VFX happening and notice the flaws that the rest of us do not?
Yeah, that has slightly changed the way I watch things. I definitely can tell. Well, I can't always tell because like the artists are so talented. It's so well done, but you get an idea of like, yeah, that's going to be VFX. I really love to ruin the Bond movies that come on at Christmas every year for my mom.
Oh.
Someone was like, that helicopter's fake, Mom, and she doesn't appreciate it.
Oh, really? You like burst through that third wall.
Yeah.
She just, everybody wants to believe, right? But I guess when you're in VFX, you know all the tricks.
Yeah, and it
of
can be the
trade.
most mundane things that are being added. There was like one movie where I know they just had to add a pile of tables. And, like they could have just had a pile of tables, but they didn't. We had to create a pile of tables.
Do you ever feel like VFX is sometimes used too much, or it's sort of a crutch that certain films sort of latch onto if they don't maybe have the budget for extra tables? Or what's the limit? Like, what's the perfect percentage or the perfect amount of VFX in a movie compared to real live objects?
It's hard to say this as well because I feel like a lot of VFX is also done because it's in hindsight. When they're viewing the rushes, they'll be like, okay, we can see this wig line on this person, which they couldn't see while they were filming or they weren't paying attention. So then it's now come a visual effects problem where we have to remove the wig line.
Okay, so it becomes your problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
Is that an attitude on set?
I don't know. I would hope not, but maybe.
Oh, okay. I'm curious based on like the number of, wrinkle lines you see that show up at your desk. We do have another couple questions. Thank you, audience. Someone is asking, where do you meet other VFX workers, or where can you meet them if you're not in the community? Like, what events or what online spaces would you recommend for people to go to try to find that tribe?
There's definitely events on like SIGGRAPH, and I know in Montreal there's various events on that the VES Society put on. And even places like Comic-Cons and stuff, because that's where it's the kind of place that we all want to hang out because we're all kind of nerds, really.
Fair enough. Another question here is, the top box office sales are all VFX heavy. Do you think VFX is more important these days than the actors? Controversial. Controversial question.
I don't know what I'm expected to say here because without visual effects, I wouldn't have a job.
Right.
But no, I prefer movies with less VFX, to be honest.
Okay.
I prefer like the drama-driven stories with the good actors.
Right. Because it's emotionally triggering.
Exactly.
Like,
I would
VFX
rather
has
that
a
than
limit.
Yeah. I don't need explosions all the time.
Right. So, we talked about like the perfect formula of how much VFX versus acting. In your opinion, it's a little less, but well decided VFX as opposed to, the more the merrier.
Exactly. Like invisible VFX, I feel is the best kind.
Okay. You don't even know.
Exactly.
You're not going to ruin the movies like you do for your mom. It's the when you don't even notice. Okay. Cool. So another question we have, the last question probably, is have you ever thought about perhaps teaching in this industry to try to encourage, or what's next for you in your career? Like, what's your goals for what's coming next?
Do you know what? When I was growing up, when I was at primary school, when everybody would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up, my answer was actually a teacher.
Oh,
So maybe it could be a thing some days, though. But for me, I definitely want to learn more. Like, I want to learn some more programming languages like Python, because now I have that opportunity to do so for my job. That's going to be really beneficial.
okay. So we gotta hook you up with Frincy, who was here earlier. She was in AI. Oh. Nice. Okay. Cool. So obviously, coding is something that you're thinking about. That's great.
I wish it had been something when I was at school, because now it's becoming a bigger thing for
Right.
teaching kids at school this, and it really wasn't a thing
Right.
when I was at school, at least
Okay,
in
so
my little school in Scotland.
So you think that the needle has moved on?
Yeah, definitely.
on teaching kids about tech and getting them involved.
But
in
yeah,
this
but it's also the world is progressing so quickly, and that matters. So
Right.
we have to. We have no choice now.
Right. Okay. Great. Well, with the last few seconds of this interview, I'm hoping I can roll out the red carpet for you, and you can tell us what you're working on and where we should follow you and what's next for you and where to connect.
I can't actually say what I'm working on currently.
Okay. Great. That's exciting.
NDAs are a thing, so I'm not allowed to name drop any projects.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would love to hint, but I can't.
That's okay. I don't want to get you in trouble. Where should people be following you or following your business? Where can people?
Well, MPC are one of the big players in visual effects, so you'll find them everywhere.
Okay, cool. So just follow on social. And any final words for the crowd in real life or online today about getting into VFX?
No, just in a nutshell, like I said, just you can start at the bottom and work your way up, and just be a nice people person.
Okay, be kind. Maybe you'll have a
Definitely.
fated chance in an elevator. Thank you
True.
so much for coming in and chatting with us about your experience. It's been really nice to talk to you, and,
Yeah.
and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Big round of applause. Thanks so much. Okay, so I'm happy to invite the next guest to the stage. She's a data scientist who brings a wealth of experience to those clients in Move AI to guide them on their journey. Mary Odette St. Hilaire has a PhD in applied mathematics and has been involved in AI, data, and connected object projects in the field of smart cities, smart mobility, and maritime surveillance. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Really excited to be in front of real people. I mean, it's been months and months that I'm hiding behind my screen, so yeah, it's fun. Today, I will talk to you about my journey to a career that didn't exist when I finished school. My name is Marie-Odette Saint-Hilaire. I was born in Quebec. I live in Montreal. And I have a PhD in maths and also an MBA. What I do for as hobby is I watch a lot of TV, eat a lot of sweet, and hopefully I run a lot. What I do for living, I do data science. I do it at Move AI. My area of expertise, like you were told before, is data in general, but more specifically geospatial data, open data, but also smart cities, transportation, and maritime security. My mission at work in my career in general is to contribute to the adoption of data literacy, because I truly believe that if the companies and government would use more their data to make decisions, well, they'll be more efficient and more open also, more transparent. So I'm a data person, and it even got me the nickname of Lady Data. But what I really do since the beginning of my career is help people answer tough questions with data. Data scientist, it's my job title. But I was doing that at least 8 years before it became a thing, before it became data science. Before that, we called it the decision support technologies, data mining. It evolved to business intelligence, and then finally, data science. It was in 2012 that HBR famously claimed that data scientist would be the sexiest job of the 21st century. So yay, finally, I had the sexy job title. And yet, the first time I think data science was called dead was in 2018. Since then, every year, you're going to read some papers saying that data science is dead. Why so? Well, data science got bigger and bigger. And then what happened when something got bigger? It subdivided in small pieces. And from the more specialized portion of data science. And from that, new jobs emerge. MLOps, machine learning engineer, even our AI architect, and so on and so on. So new specialized jobs emerge, but also new tools. For instance, automatic machine learning, AutoML. It's quite popular. It's gonna search all kind of algorithm and help the data scientist to do its job and eventually replace him or her. So everything here tells me that my job title will change quite soon, actually. So will I still be pertinent? Well, I hope so, because I'm not defined by my job title. I'm defined with what I do. Remember, I answer tough questions with data, and this will never go out of style. And what you see with the data scientist job title, rise and fall, you saw it, and you're going to see it with a lot of job titles. It's especially in tech. There's a lot of hype about job title. And with the AI coming in, artificial intelligence, you will see new industries coming in. And from that, new jobs also. So, spoiler alert, be prepared to do a job that does not exist right now. And the rest of the talk, I'm going to present you our 3 principles that I followed in my career and I still follow to survive in that moving environment. First principle, it is summarized with that very interesting quote. Don't think about what you want to be, but what you want to do. Let me tell you 2 stories about how this quote was important in my career and still is. The first one is the story of how I ended up doing a PhD in maths. Well, when I was in college, in Cégep, in Quebec, I didn't know what I wanted to be. And the system puts you a lot of pressure to decide what you want to be. I didn't know, a pharmacist, an engineer, I really didn't know. What I knew, however, was that I liked doing maths. And it's not that I really liked the topic itself of mathematics, and it was okay, but not passionate about. It was the feeling that I had when I was doing math. Just felt great. Felt like I was in a bubble, very calm, and at the same time, very thrilled, like electricity in my brain. So I loved that feeling, and I wanted to extend that feeling. So I started a bachelor degree in maths. And while I was doing my bachelor degree, I fell in love with a topic called numerical analysis. Numerical analysis is the bridge between maths and computer science. It makes sure that maths can exist in the computer and still stay right. So I did a PhD in that, and again, while I was doing my PhD, I had a lot of pressure. What you want to be with that? Do you want to be an accountant? Do you want to be a teacher? People didn't really understand. But I was just feeling so great doing maths, this warm feeling in my bubble. I didn't want to leave it. So I continued, and I'm so glad I did. Because after that, I found a great job, and I built my career on it. And I had the opportunity to feel so good for so long. So that was one time I listened to that quote. My second story is about how I went from general director of a company to data scientist. when I finished school, I started to work at Lockheed Martin and then to a startup called UDA Technologies. So when I started, I had, well, of course, a lot of technical tasks. And then I was good at it. And I was good to managing my time also, talking to people. So I had more and more managing tasks. It started with taking care of interns, new employees, small teams, small projects, and so on, until I reached this point, the choice point. This is a point where you have to decide whether you go on the technical path or you go in the managing path. And every one of you starting a technical career will reach that point. It's all the time you reach that and you ask yourself, what I'm going to do. I was a very ambitious person. And for me, the only way to translate this ambition was becoming a boss. I wanted to be CEO, see something, a boss. And I even did an MBA to become better at it. So I became general director of my company. And it was good. I was doing it okay. I was fine doing it, but didn't really like it. Didn't feel great as I was feeling in my bubble doing maths and computer science and this electricity in my head. None of it. So I had to step back, and redo that choice and select the technical path. And I did tabula rasa, started at a new place as a data scientist. So this is one time I didn't listen to the crowd, and I focused on what I wanted to be instead of what I wanted to do. So how do I manage to do something I love on a daily basis, and also to prepare for a job that doesn't exist? Because remember, my job title would probably change. So I learn. Every morning, I am a beginner. So I learn every day. I mean, my job is to learn, and it's on and on learning. So you may think that because you're finishing school or about to, that your learning path is about to finish. Not the case. It's starting. The good news is school is a good place to learn how to learn. You learn stuff at school, technical stuff, that is going to be obsolete in a few years. Sorry to tell you that, but it's true. But the way you learn how to learn, the way you learn, never going to be obsolete. For instance, I like to write stuff down. I realized that at university. For me, when I write stuff, it helps me to remember it and to sink it inside of me. So, and I still do it. I learned that at school. So you are building the blocks of your learning path at university. Bad news. Learning is hard. It's really hard. And it's fun, but it's hard. And learning means failing. And the strange thing is, when you fail, you learn faster. So it goes together. But maybe what I want to tell you more about the learning path is that you will have to adapt your learning way to the context you are in. You change the context, you change your way of learning, and so on, and it evolves during all of your career. Let me tell you another story about that to illustrate this concept. And this is the story of my learning path at school. And this one has no filter, so you're advised. When I was in high school, school was really easy for me, not a question. It's okay, I had good grades. When I started in college, in Cégep, I failed two classes in first year, physics and maths. Remember, I did a PhD in math. I failed math, ouch. And to look cool to you, I could say, well, I wasn't studying, partying too much. No, I was kind of putting the hours. I was studying, just not the right way. When I started my second years, I don't know, my grades went up. And I had A's. And what happened is that I learned how to study in college. I learned how to learn in college, and I was fine. So when I started university, I was really pumped about this last year in college. I thought I knew it all. So I started my bachelor degree. First year, I failed one class again in maths. Remember, I did my PhD in math, and I failed in math, so it was really difficult. But I continued. And during my bachelor degree, again, my grades went up, and enough that I was accepted in grad school, so that was good. And what happened again is that I learned how to learn in university. And it's never a haha moment, it's a process. I mean, you get better, and then you're good at it. So that's what happened, and in grad school it was okay, I was good. And even when I did my MBA, I crushed it, because I knew how to study at university. Super easy, I knew how to do it. And I could continue this story with every job I had, because starting a new job is hard. You need to learn, of course, about the business domain, text, stuff like that, technology. But you also have to learn about the fuzzy stuff, like the unwritten rules of the company, culture, how people communicate together. You have to understand that also, but you learn. And then you change company, you have to restart again. Good news, your baggage is bigger and bigger, so it gets easier. Third principle. How do you manage to survive a constant learning state as that? How do you can you be a constant, eternal learner like that? And how do you be able to evolve in that running context? Well, you make friends. You make friends at work. When I'm surrounded with, I mean, everything's easier with friends, of course, but when you're surrounded with people you trust, I trust, and people I respect, I learn from them. You know, the fuzzy stuff I was telling you about, the company, well, it gets to you. You're like a sponge, you're absorbing. In fact, friends at work make your learning curve steeper, so it's a good thing. And of course, on top of that, you're gonna spend like 40 hours per week at your job, or working. So with friends, as I said, it's easier and it's more enjoyable. And you know, looking back in your life, 1 year back, 5 years back, 10 years, you always think about the people, the relation you had. It's true in your personal life, but it's true at work also, because people is all we got. I am an introvert. Doesn't show because I'm talking to you right now in front of people, but I am an introvert. But I'm not alone. Latest North American studies show that half of people is introvert, the other half is extrovert. In fact, it's a continuum, it's a spectrum. Most of people are somewhere in the middle, but still half and half. How do you make friends at work? How do you network when you are an introvert? Well, there's tons of books about it, go read it. But for me, I tend to realize that I was using taking profit of my introvert side to network, to make friends. For instance, I'm very more comfortable in small groups, 2, 3 person, even better one-on-one. So I use these occasions to go beyond the small talk, have more profound discussions. Also, as an introvert, well, I'm a better listener than talker. So I listen. I listen to people. I listen to their stories. I pay attention. So after years and years of trying to be more an extrovert, going to networking event and really sucking at it because I'm not comfortable, hiding in the bathroom and feeling bad, I finally realized that my way of building a network was good. It was a really good way. And looking back also at my network, I had a great network because, you know, a strong network is not based on the number of people in. It's based on the quality of the relationship in your network. So let me conclude with an equation because, hey, I'm a mathematician. To do a job that doesn't exist right now, this is something you will have to do also. It requires adaptation or flexibility, agility, whatever. This is that. You need to move with your environment. If you do nothing, if you stay still, the bus will pass and you're going to miss it. That's not what you want to do. So how I do it, my equation, I learn. Every day, I learn. I learn how new stuff and make sure that I'm following that bus. I make friends also, because friends help me to understand this moving world, this moving bus, and make me feel better about myself. And I forget about the job title, because you saw it changed very often. I focus on what I really want to do instead. So if there is one key takeaway for you, is adaptation. And this is my equation, but you can use it. Feel free to do it, but I mean, you can also build your own. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie-Odette. Please stay with me. I'm going to ask you a few questions, see if the audience has some. You can take a seat. I'm going to sit there.
Okay.
So you're a data scientist and you're an introvert.
Yeah.
Seems like an appropriate mix. Data science, we've heard so much about it, and we're here in Montreal, we talk about AI, and we hear about AI all the time. But I think for most people, when we talk about AI, and I was like that a few years ago, I still imagine sci-fi novels and Arthur C. Clarke and all of these things. And we both know that we are not there yet.
No, hopefully.
So can you give us maybe a little snippet of what AI looks like now? What does it like? What does it do?
Yeah. Well, there are two big pillar, I'd say, of AI in Montreal specifically. There's the research community, which is huge, like one of the biggest in the world is in Montreal. And you have also the industry AI, which is quite different, a little less advanced, I'd say, that what's going on in university, because you have to apply it, you have to, so I'm on this side, I'm on the industry side. And AI, AI come with data. They are like, it's a marriage, okay? No data, no AI. And to have good data for an industry requires some kind of maturity. And it's not all the industry that were born data-centric, like LinkedIn or Airbnb. Most of the company here in Quebec, Canada, were born before this data revolution. So they have to try to become more data-centric. It's a lot of work for them. So that's why, let's say, in industry versus in university, the AI is less advanced, unless for companies that are like data-centric, like Google and stuff like that. So you have these two things. And in the company, industry, there's a lot of kind of application, but I mean, we are still at this beginning, trying to build a data literacy culture in companies. Some companies are quite advanced. I'd say in finance, they are more advanced. In healthcare, it's starting, and it's starting everywhere. So I'd say that we are the starting point of it, and people are starting to understand the value of their data and also try to invest in data. So that's
and so you talk about the value of data. And we know there's one, and we've like, I think in Quebec we've heard of Desjardins, we've heard of leaks on data, we've heard of about a lot of things, and I think it's still hard to figure out the core of why are data scientists that important in our technological ecosystem right now. Do you have maybe concrete examples of why data scientists are so important when we start building AI?
Yeah, well, data scientists are like a jack of all trades with data. So as I said, data is important. So we need to jump in and first of all assess what kind of data you have. Let's say I start a mandate at a company. I have to look, what's your data? Okay. What do you want to do? What's the problem you want to solve with AI or whatever, with data? What's okay? You want to, I don't know, improve efficiency of something. So, okay, what do you have? You have this data. What is the quality of your data? So the data scientists will start to look at data, assess the quality of it. Is there missing data in it? Do you have some garbage in that? So since when do you have accumulated data? So we assess the data, and then we look at the potential to predict and to solve the problem with this data. So, and then comes the algorithm. We, as data scientists, we are aware of not all, but bunch of algorithms to solve problem. And you apply the algorithms, and then you see, are these results really good, or is it bad? And I'd say that one of the biggest challenge is to communicate a result to people who are not data scientists. So it's also a big part of communication. You cannot just throw a bunch of numbers. It has to make sense in the business domain. So it's always, so it's as I said, it's kind of a jack of all trades person who's really into data and like to play with it.
I like the way you describe it, because data science, and when we talk about a set of data, like we often imagine something that's really dry, abstract, like a huge table of numbers. But the way you describe it, you make it look as if it was solving a puzzle.
Absolutely.
Which is, I think, already a little bit more fun. I have a question here for you from the audience. It's anonymous, so I don't know who it is, but who is asking, in the industry, what is moving too fast and what is moving too slow?
Well, it depends. Well, I always have this feeling of how the industry is really moving and how people say it is in fact moving. It's too speed. Like you read Gartner paper and it's like they have a sort of a hype curve. And you feel that we are way behind, but sometimes I wonder, are they too fast? You know? So it's a hard question to answer. I think it's philosophical.
I guess. We just have a few seconds to finish, so I'm just going to conclude with that question that I like to ask people when I'm doing an interview. Are you happy?
Yes, I am. I really am.
That's good. I think it's important to ask, because sometimes we take it for granted and we assume that because somebody is on stage, they are ecstatic and they are living their best life, and it's not always the case.
True.
So thank you so much, Marie-Odette Saint-Hilaire, for being here today at the first Canadian Campus Party ever. I'm going to invite you to leave the stage and invite our next guest. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go back to French and say that thing. Quand on parle de jeux vidéo, et on a beaucoup parlé de jeux vidéo, on a eu des beaux conférenciers, on pense souvent à tout ce qui est la création de jeux vidéo, la production de jeux vidéo. Et depuis quelques années, le jeu vidéo, c'est plus juste la création des jeux, c'est aussi tout un écosystème qui existe à l'extérieur de tout ça, dans lequel il y a énormément de choses qui se passent. Et mon prochain invité, c'est un des architectes du sport électronique au Canada. Je vais demander à Carl Edwin Mitchell de monter sur scène, me rejoindre. The coolest guy I met today. Assis-toi.
Merci.
De ce que j'ai compris avant qu'on commence, tu avais une petite vidéo à nous montrer.
Oui, une petite vidéo qui montre un peu ce qu'on fait à Norton Arena.
Ah bah parfait. Let's go, on regarde ça.
So as you may know, we had our first Northern Arena event this weekend.
It was exciting to come here and be at the tournament. One of the first big tournaments we've ever been to in Canada. Thanks to Northern Arena.
You know, there's a lot more to come. Introducing Northern Arena. Oh my goodness! ridiculous.
Hello, and welcome to Squad, your source for everything gaming.
We are about to go to the 6th Invitational. Welcome to a new Squadcast.
Let's get into the game. Are you ready for the rematch of the century?
3 seconds remaining. He's got to get it on it. Oh, they score! Are you kidding me?
Welcome to the world of Fortnite.
You've got to perform at your highest caliber of competition.
Rocket League honestly is about community. Since the very beginning,
he's the prolific coach, the world champion himself.
Oh, here it goes. Put 2K on it. Put your bank account on it. Yeah!
Welcome back to Northern Arena's Mortal Kombat Clash.
It's going to be Optic Gaming takes it and your Northern Arena Montreal champions.
Places like this and with big crowds especially, it's awesome for everyone.
That's it! The Seattle Entourage are your Northern Arena EA NHL 20 Cup champions.
Stewie to the smoke, what is this? Stewie is incredible. Squishy's like, I'm not done. This one's for the fans. Boom! Bristini manages to do it for E United.
You have sore forearms, I'm assuming from gaming too much?
And he gets the headshot. It's the ace.
Oh my goodness! Unbelievable!
Wow.
Cool. Pas mal, hein, quand même, pas mal.
Ouais.
Ça fait 5 ans qu'on fait ça.
5 ans que vous faites ça.
Ouais.
Est-ce que quand tu as commencé à faire ça, il y a 5 ans, donc,
Oui.
tu t'imaginais que ça allait être aussi?
Non, pas du tout. En fait, c'était un petit projet on the side, comme on dit. Donc, je travaillais sur bien d'autres choses. Et puis, je me suis dit, ben, pourquoi pas démarrer une entreprise qui œuvre dans le monde du sport électronique. On a commencé comme ça, on va faire des tournois ici et là. On a rassemblé une communauté très rapidement. On a été contacté par même un de vos partenaires, Bell, qui est venu nous parler. Ils nous ont dit, mais pourquoi pas faire un événement au Centre Bell? On s'est dit, bah oui, pourquoi pas? Donc, on a commencé comme ça. Puis au fur et à mesure, ça a évolué. Et puis, on est bien content qu'après 5 ans, on a passé à travers toutes ces belles aventures. Et je pourrais parler aussi un peu plus tard de qu'est-ce qu'on fait à Northern Arena.
C'était ma prochaine question, en fait, très exactement, justement.
Oui.
C'est quoi que vous faites à Northern Arena? C'est quoi tes projets un petit peu?
Oui, ben Northern Arena, c'est une entreprise qui fait beaucoup de choses. J'aime dire qu'on a 3 piliers dans l'entreprise. Donc, le premier pilier, c'est les tournois. Donc, on fait des tournois de sport électronique, on fait des tournois en personne, en présentiel. D'ailleurs, je dis allô à mes amis qui sont là-bas dans la salle. On fait un tournoi de jeux de combat en ce moment à Campus Party ce week-end. Donc, on fait des tournois en présentiel. On fait aussi des tournois en ligne. Et on travaille avec différents publishers. Donc, on travaille avec Ubisoft, Riot et bien d'autres. Donc, on s'assure de créer des événements, soit en présentiel ou en ligne, avec ces gens-là. Donc, ça, c'est le premier pilier de l'entreprise. Le deuxième pilier de l'entreprise, c'est les émissions. On produit des émissions de télévision, on produit du contenu, ce que vous avez vu dans la vidéo un peu plus tôt, Retake, World of Fortnite, toutes ces émissions-là sont diffusées sur Jinx TV Canada. On a vendu une de nos émissions Squad à Sony Pictures and Television, donc c'est diffusé dans 15 pays en Europe. Donc, et on a une chaîne YouTube de Leaderboard, donc vous irez voir ça, de Leaderboard sur YouTube, qui est une chaîne à peu près à 1,5 million d'abonnés, où on parle de jeux vidéo. Donc ça, c'est un peu le deuxième aspect de l'entreprise qui est le contenu. Et le troisième bébé, le troisième volet de Northern Arena, c'est Mirage. Et Mirage est une équipe de sport électronique qui compétitionne dans différents jeux. On a une équipe à Las Vegas en ce moment qui roule sur Rainbow Six Siege et une équipe de League of Legends, etc. Donc on est vraiment dans ce monde-là. Donc ce sont les 3 piliers de l'entreprise et on est content et fier de dire qu'on est une entreprise qui est entièrement dans le monde du jeu vidéo et du e-sports. Je
vais revenir un peu sur Mirage un peu plus tard. J'ai peut-être 2-3 petites questions encore sur ta sur ta relation avec la production de jeux vidéo. Tu disais que par exemple, vous organisez des événements avec les éditeurs, avec Ubisoft, etc. etc. Est-ce que aujourd'hui, avec la taille que la scène du e-sport a pris, il y a des créateurs de jeux, des studios qui viennent vous voir pour vous demander du feedback sur les jeux qu'ils sont en train de créer?
Oui, définitivement. Je ne pourrais pas te dire tout parce que souvent je suis sur NDA, mais on travaille avec de grosses entreprises, en fait, de grosses entreprises de AAA et aussi des indies qui viennent nous voir comme consultants pour voir un peu qu'est-ce que ça prend pour avoir un bon jeu qui va attirer une audience de e-sports. La chose qui est très importante à comprendre, puis ça c'est une des choses qu'on dit souvent à ces gens-là, c'est que c'est ta communauté. C'est ta communauté qui va amener ton jeu à un niveau où ça va devenir un e-sport. Ça va devenir quelque chose de très compétitif. Parce que des jeux compétitifs, il y en a plein. Tu peux être compétitif sur toutes sortes de jeux. Mais qu'est-ce qui fait qu'un jeu est rendu à un niveau qu'on dit e-sport, où il y a une audience qui le regarde, où il y a tout un écosystème? Ça prend beaucoup plus que ça. Et la communauté est vraiment la première chose.
Et puis, on a vu aussi, je pense, c'est quelque chose que tu as pu observer dans les dernières années, des fois il y a des jeux complètement inattendus qui se retrouvent catapultés sur la scène du e-sport. Je pense à My Little Pony Fighting in Magic qui avait ouvert à Evo il y a quelques années.
Exactement.
Blood Bowl qui avait eu un tournoi de youtubeurs qui étaient juste des fans de la licence. Des fois, c'est des petits magic moments.
C'est ça,
il n'y a aucun contrôle finalement.
Et il n'y a aucun contrôle comme ça, tu ne peux pas le fabriquer. C'est vraiment juste des petits moments comme ça et ta communauté des fois. Et vraiment, les YouTubers, les streamers sont capables d'amener un jeu à un niveau très élevé.
Fait que, si on repart là-dessus, c'est quoi que tu conseillerais à un jeune créateur de jeux aujourd'hui, qu'il soit indépendant ou dans un grand studio, pour... Justement, c'est quoi la première chose qu'il doit mettre dans son jeu et qu'il doit penser dans son jeu pour essayer d'avoir ne serait-ce qu'une chance sur la scène e-sport?
Je reviens encore au mot communauté. Je pense que la communauté, c'est important. Donc, quels outils, quels features que tu as dans ton jeu qui va te permettre justement d'avoir cette relation-là avec ta communauté? Comment tu utilises les réseaux sociaux aussi pour aller chercher cette communauté-là, faire des playtests, pour s'assurer que dès la base, dès le tout début, ces gens-là participent à l'évolution de ton jeu, puis le rendre à un niveau où, ça devient un jeu de masse et les gens veulent jouer à ton jeu. Donc, je dirais, avant même de mettre un feature dans ton jeu, essaye de le tester. Essaye de demander à ta communauté, les fans. Des fois, c'est peut-être juste 2-3 personnes, mais ça peut augmenter avec le temps. Donc, de rester ouvert à ça, c'est important.
Donc, faire de l'itération, finalement. C'est quelque chose qu'on a amené dans le logiciel depuis des années. Puis je pense que c'est
quelque chose qui fonctionne. Oui.
Ça fonctionne. Même dans le jeu vidéo, ça fonctionne. Oui. OK, si on revient un petit peu comme sur la scène de l'e-sport, tu as lancé une team qui s'appelle Mirage.
Oui.
C'est quoi aujourd'hui un athlète électronique, si on peut dire?
C'est une très bonne question. Un athlète électronique, oui, évidemment, il doit passer énormément d'heures devant soit son ordinateur ou sa console pour pratiquer, étudier ses adversaires, regarder des vidéos qu'il a regardées à l'époque, en fait des matchs pour pouvoir apprendre les patterns, etc. Donc ça, c'est une chose. Mais aussi tout l'aspect physique. Et je sais que souvent, il y a des gens qui se disent « Ben non, un compétiteur de jeux vidéo, il est assis toute la journée sur son ordinateur. » Non, il y a vraiment point de vue mental et point de vue physique. Ces gens-là doivent être prêts parce que souvent, ils ont des longues périodes de jeu qui doivent rester très focus pour s'assurer d'être performants. Donc ça se pratique, ça s'apprend. Et nous, de notre côté, avec Mirage, on a justement un coaching staff. Et avec le coaching staff, on s'assure que non seulement ils sont prêts pour les stratégies et tout ça dans le jeu, mais aussi qu'ils soient prêts physiquement et mentalement surtout à performer, surtout quand il y a des longs tournois avec de longues périodes de jeu. Donc ça, c'est très important.
Puis, admettons, quelqu'un dans notre audience se dit « Hey, moi j'ai envie de faire ça. » Comment est-ce que je rentre? Qu'est-ce que ça prend pour rentrer dans une équipe comme Mirage?
Oui, qu'est-ce que ça prend? Évidemment, si tu penses que tu sens que tu as un talent peu importe le jeu, et que tu veux en faire une carrière ou tu veux évoluer dans le monde du sport électronique en tant que joueur pro, et même en tant que coach ou autre, moi je te conseille de commencer à participer à des petits tournois. Il y a souvent des petits tournois locaux. Des fois même, de plus en plus, il y a des universités, des collèges qui entrent dans le monde du sport électronique. Donc comment toi, tu t'inscris à ces tournois-là pour te permettre éventuellement de performer et de te faire remarquer par des scouts, parce que ça ressemble au sport traditionnel de ce sens-là. C'est qu'on a des gens, nous, chez Mirage, on a 2 personnes qui s'occupent seulement de dépister les bons joueurs. Ils vont aller dans un jeu, par exemple, de League of Legends, et ils vont aller regarder à travers la planète, ou surtout au Canada, quels sont les joueurs qui performent selon nos critères, nos standards, pour les amener au niveau professionnel. Donc, c'est super important pour nous. Donc, il y a vraiment des gens comme ça qui sont scouters, qui vont regarder. Donc, l'important, en fait, ce que j'essaie de dire, c'est qu'à ces jeunes-là, de s'exposer le plus possible à une opportunité pour eux dans le futur. Donc, c'est participer à des tournois, participer à des petits tournois locaux, tournois de l'école, de l'université, tout ça, pour éventuellement avoir une chance d'aller plus loin.
Est-ce que tu penses que c'est le genre de carrière dans lequel, pour aller participer à ces tournois, il faut y aller avec le mindset de « je vais y aller pour devenir un professionnel » ou est-ce que tu penses qu'il faut quand même privilégier d'abord autre chose?
Oui, c'est sûr que ça, c'est dans tout dans la vie, c'est la passion. Si tu aimes déjà le jeu que tu joues et que tu es déjà prêt à mettre énormément d'heures parce que tu t'amuses, c'est déjà le principal. Tu ne veux pas commencer à faire tu dis « Ah, je vais choisir League of Legends parce que les salaires sont plus gros dans League of Legends, donc je vais aller... » Non, tu vas, après quelques heures ou quelques années, ou même peut-être quelques mois, tu vas abandonner parce que tu n'as pas la passion pour ce jeu-là. Donc, premièrement, choisis le jeu qui te passionne. Et quand tu choisis ce jeu-là qui te passionne, là, tu peux mettre des heures, du temps pour éventuellement devenir un pro.
Tu parlais des petits tournois locaux, puis une question que je me pose beaucoup, c'est que souvent quand on imagine le monde de l'e-sport et des sports électroniques, on imagine ces grandes scènes qu'on voit dans les shows à Vegas, etc.
Oui.
Est-ce que ça existe? Est-ce que ça se fait d'être un athlète électronique amateur?
Ben oui, il y a des athlètes électroniques amateurs, il y en a énormément d'ailleurs, et c'est ce bassin-là de pros, pas de pros, mais de joueurs amateurs qui vont devenir pros, qui permet à l'écosystème de vivre. Donc, il y a énormément de joueurs amateurs. C'est pour ça qu'il y a énormément de tournois amateurs. Il y a énormément de ligues collégiales universitaires. Énormément. Il y en a quelques-unes, évidemment. On sait que, par exemple, pour nous ici au Canada, on est peut-être un petit peu en arrière comparé à l'Asie et l'Europe, mais ça prend beaucoup d'ampleur en Amérique du Nord de plus en plus. Donc, ça devient intéressant là, pour ces jeunes-là qui sont plus amateurs d'éventuellement aller vers le pro. Donc oui, pour répondre à ta question, il y a énormément de joueurs amateurs et je pousserais les gens d'y aller parce que tu ne deviens pas pro du jour au lendemain. Hein? Il y a toujours cette étape-là, donc il faut la suivre.
Et maintenant, peut-être une question qui va servir... Je pense que c'est peut-être la question que je vais te poser qui peut être la plus utile pour un jeune qui veut se lancer dans cette carrière-là. Qu'est-ce qu'ils disent à leurs parents?
Ah, ça, c'est une bonne question. C'est la question la plus difficile. En même temps, je pense que ça devient de plus en plus facile maintenant pour les jeunes de dire à leurs parents qu'il y a une carrière dans le monde du jeu vidéo. Moi, à l'époque, quand j'étais plus jeune, dire ça à mes parents, c'était quoi? T'es fou? Qu'est-ce que tu fais? À quoi tu penses? Mais maintenant, il y a eu tellement d'amélioration, d'évolution dans le monde du sport électronique qui fait que, et pas juste en tant que joueur, mais en tant que coach, en tant que... il y a des gens en administration, il y a des social media, il y a tellement de choses qui enveloppent une équipe de sport électronique ou carrément l'organisation de tournois de e-sports, par exemple, ou évidemment être un joueur, que c'est beaucoup plus mainstream, si on veut, maintenant. Donc, ce qui fait que si un jeune maintenant va voir son parent, on va lui dire « je veux devenir un pro à League of Legends, par exemple », ben, il y a un chemin pour lui, plus qu'il y en avait avant. Peut-être que maintenant, il y a une équipe à son école ou dans son université, donc c'est beaucoup plus facile. Maintenant, tout ça étant dit, c'est sûr que c'est toujours peut-être nerve-wracking, si on veut, pour un jeune d'aller voir ses parents pour leur dire ben, « moi, mon objectif, un jour, c'est devenir un pro de jeux vidéo ». Mais de plus en plus, c'est accepté. Donc moi, je dirais à ces jeunes-là, allez-y, mais allez-y bien équipés. Présentez-leur, je ne veux pas dire un dossier, mais leur dire, voici qu'est-ce qui se passe dans le milieu en ce moment, il y a plein de choses, voici des jeunes qui réussissent ou qui en font leur carrière, et à ce moment-là, les parents peuvent dire, ah, il a fait ses devoirs.
Ouais, montrer que tu as un plan, puis que c'est pas un projet sur le côté, comme tu disais.
C'est ça, exactement.
Il y a quelque chose qui a été bien réfléchi. Je regarde un petit peu les questions que j'avais. Je check un œil aussi aux questions du public. Il y a une chose dont j'aurais voulu parler avec toi. C'est un peu le climat qu'il y a sur les jeux en ligne. Tu parlais de League of Legends, par exemple, qui est un jeu qui est assez connu, mais la plupart des jeux multijoueurs sont assez connus pour que les chats soient toxiques.
Ouais.
On a vu Riot qui a annoncé récemment qu'ils allaient bannir le chat all.
Ouais.
Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour ça?
C'est un problème qui n'est pas juste dans le sport électronique, mais même sur les réseaux sociaux. C'est un phénomène d'Internet qui est très difficile à dealer parce qu'évidemment, il y a beaucoup de gens qui sont dans l'anonymat, derrière un clavier, derrière un écran, avec un pseudonyme sur Internet, et puis se permettent de dire toutes sortes de choses. Je sais qu'il y a beaucoup de publishers, de créateurs de jeux qui essaient de mettre des outils en place pour essayer d'enrayer ou d'essayer d'empêcher ce genre de phénomène-là ou ce genre de choses d'arriver. Maintenant, ce n'est pas facile. Je sais qu'il y a beaucoup par exemple, pour nous, à Northern Arena, on a des modérateurs sur le chat. Donc, à chaque fois qu'on fait un tournoi qui s'est diffusé, on essaie le plus possible d'avoir des modérateurs. Maintenant, ça, c'est juste pour le chat dans un stream. Dans le jeu lui-même, des fois, les gens peuvent être très, très toxiques aussi, même avec le voice chat et tout ça. Tu as mentionné Riot qui essaye de faire quand même des choses assez concrètes pour essayer d'enrayer tout ça ou au moins de diminuer ce genre de problème. Donc, éventuellement, c'est quelque chose qui va on espère diminuer le plus possible. Est-ce qu'on va être capable de l'enrayer? Peut-être pas, mais je pense que si on est capable de bien encadrer ces gens-là, ces équipes, pour s'assurer d'avoir le moins de toxicité possible, je pense qu'on est capable d'aller plus loin. Tu as entendu dernièrement avec Twitch, il y avait des gens qui stream snipaient des streamers. Il y avait toutes sortes de choses quand même assez négatives qui sont arrivées. Mais au bout de la ligne, c'est maintenant qu'on sait que ces choses-là existent, en fait, on sait depuis longtemps que ça existe, mais là, on a des façons peut-être d'essayer d'enrayer tout ça, bien, il va falloir continuer. Donc, c'est un travail de longue haleine, c'est un travail qui ne va pas être réglé tout de suite, mais il va falloir continuer à pousser de ce côté-là.
Qu'est-ce que c'est peut-être un conseil que tu pourrais donner à des jeunes créateurs, à des jeunes streamers, à des jeunes athlètes électroniques qui se mettent en avant sur Internet et qui n'ont pas forcément... Tu sais, quand tu commences, tu n'as pas une équipe de modération en arrière sur ton chan. Qu'est-ce que tu peux faire, toi, à ton échelle, pour essayer d'améliorer les choses?
La communauté, très simple. Tu vois, quand tu commences à streamer, tu as peut-être une ou deux personnes avec toi. Tes die-hard followers, là, c'est peut-être ta mère, ton père ou tes cousins, mais c'est déjà des gens qui sont avec toi. Déjà, implique-les dès le départ dans ton processus. Tu leur dis, OK, c'est vrai que maintenant, il n'y a pas beaucoup de chat, mais essaye d'apprendre les outils, les Nightbots et autres, pour pouvoir aider à enrayer ce genre de problème-là au fur et à mesure que ça arrive. Donc, si tu commences dès le début à avoir des choses en place, même si, évidemment, tu as peu de gens qui regardent, éventuellement, tu vas être capable de mettre des choses en place pour te protéger à l'avenir. C'est très, très, très important parce que, tu sais, les streamers sont très vulnérables. Hein. On se met, je dis on, je ne suis pas un streamer, mais les gens qui streament et tout se mettent dans une position très vulnérable parce qu'ils sont ouverts à un public et ils sont ouverts à la critique. Et souvent, ces gens-là ne sont pas nécessairement media trained, si tu veux, pour faire face à ce genre de critique-là. On va toujours se faire critiquer. Il y a toujours quelqu'un qui va nous aimer ou pas nous aimer. Et ça fait partie de la game, mais il faut juste s'assurer de ne pas avoir des gens toxiques qui vont nous attaquer personnellement. Puis parce que le pire qui puisse arriver, c'est que ces gens-là se découragent et puis qu'ils se disent « Ah ben j'arrête parce que c'est trop difficile, c'est trop toxique, les gens me crient des bêtises et tout. Il y en a on dirait qu'il y en a qui c'est leur fun de faire ça. Pas nécessairement parce qu'ils veulent, qu'ils sont méchants, mais c'est juste pour le fun de le faire. Donc, comment on essaie d'enrayer ce genre de... C'est troll.
les fameux trolls d'Internet.
Ouais.
Je vois une question du public, je vais te la poser tout de suite, elle est intéressante. C'est quelqu'un d'anonyme qui demande « How big is Canada's e-sport market ?»
How big is Canada's esports market? So the Canada's esports market is pretty big right now. Je réponds à la question en anglais parce qu'elle a été posée en anglais, c'est correct?
C'est correct.
Oui.
On peut changer de langue. On est à Montréal.
On fait du franglais. On fait du franglais. So the ecosystem is getting bigger and bigger. So obviously, you know, Asia, Europe, and even the States are much bigger than Canada. But now more and more you see a lot of either bigger teams or organizers that are coming forward to do those great events or to represent the country. So, for example, us with Mirage, we're the only representative of Canada in the North American League of Rainbow Six in Las Vegas. So that's cool. So it's shedding lights a little bit more on the country. I know that Overactive Media, for example, they have, you know, they're part of the Overwatch League. They have a team in Spain, and you know, so there's more and more of us being part of that ecosystem that makes it bigger and bigger. Is it you know, as big as the States and the rest of the world? I would say no, but you know, it's coming. So I'm hopeful that in the next few years, you know, esports will be kind of like known in the mass media. It's still kind of niche in our country, but I think that it's going to be more and more accessible and yeah, more viewable. Yeah.
And je vais repasser
en français. Oui, excuse-moi.
Comment est-ce que vous faites chez Northern Arena? Peut-être que c'est toi, peut-être que c'est certains des équipiers pour identifier what's going to be the next big thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what's going to be the next big thing? For us, it's what's going to be the next big game, right? Because especially for that, so for two of the ecosystems, so the two of the pillars that I was talking earlier. So on a les tournois, on a le contenu et on a les équipes. So on the tournament side, qu'est-ce qui va être le prochain bon tournoi? Quel jeu on devrait toucher pour faire des tournois pour attirer une audience le plus possible et plaire à nos sponsors et tout ça, tu sais. Donc on regarde encore là, c'est la communauté. On va beaucoup chercher sur Reddit, par exemple, et tout ça, tel jeu qui vient de sortir, comment la communauté répond à ce jeu-là, le support du publisher. Est-ce que le publisher, the game creator, are they supporting their game? Are they really going to the next level for evolving that esports? So if they do, we try to connect with them. So the best example recently, we've been, you know, Apex Legend from EA came out. It was a good game, but you know, it made a big boom at the beginning, and then suddenly it kind of like died down a little bit. And then the publisher EA, ils ont décidé de mettre un petit peu plus de love, si tu veux, au jeu. Et là maintenant, it's growing really fast. So that for us, it's like, okay, there is a support from the publisher, there is a community, we have to be there. So vous allez entendre, you know, it's a premiere. L'année prochaine, on va parler beaucoup de Apex Legends. Du côté de notre équipe, c'est un peu la même chose aussi. Dans quel jeu on veut être? Dans quel jeu on veut être impliqué? Mais pour nous, ça va être la même chose. Est-ce que le support du publisher est là? Est-ce que ça vaut la peine pour nous de mettre cet investissement-là dans ce jeu-là, de payer des salaires pour des équipes, un coaching staff et tout ça, pour pouvoir aller plus loin? Donc, c'est ce genre de choses-là qu'on regarde.
Puis toi, parce que j'imagine que tu participes à ça, tu regardes Reddit, mais tu es un gamer aussi à l'origine.
Oui.
C'est quoi le genre de jeu auquel tu joues, toi, pour ton plaisir?
Oui, moi je joue à plusieurs types de jeux. Moi je suis un peu old school. Moi j'étais un big fan de Diablo. C'était un peu ça. Je joue beaucoup à des first-person shooters. J'aime beaucoup les jeux avec deep story, là, comme très avec une histoire, là, très driven. Comme par exemple The Last of Us, pour moi, c'est comme, like, it's one of my best games ever. Mais c'est pas un jeu compétitif, tu vois.
Non, pas du tout.
Pas du tout.
Pas du tout.
Mais je vais essayer de toucher des jeux qui m'intéressent. Comme par exemple, je suis un fan de sport, j'aime beaucoup le soccer. Et FIFA, ça nous intéresse beaucoup, mais aussi Rocket League. Tu vois, donc on va regarder des choses comme ça. Dans ma vie personnelle, si la question est dans ma vie personnelle, qu'est-ce que je joue, qu'est-ce que j'aime, j'ai 2 enfants, donc maintenant je joue beaucoup avec mes enfants. Mais j'ai trouvé un jeu qui est très très cool, qui s'appelle, Minecraft Dungeons, qui est un peu un genre de Diablo, si tu veux, avec l'univers de Minecraft. Et donc, avec les enfants, on joue à ça beaucoup.
Est-ce que tu arrives encore à... Parce que tu travailles dans le jeu vidéo, puis il y a cette espèce de dicton qu'on entend souvent, que c'est dangereux de travailler dans sa passion parce que ça peut tuer un petit peu la flamme. Est-ce que tu arrives encore à jouer pour le plaisir?
Oui, je joue encore pour le plaisir. Moi, je m'appelle... I'm one of those midnight dads, you know, like, quand tout le monde, les enfants sont couchés, it's like I'm going to my consoles or my PC and I play games. So j'essaie quand même de jouer à des jeux le plus possible. Oui, c'est vrai que c'est souvent très très tard. Puis moi, ça me prend beaucoup plus de temps de finir un jeu que quelqu'un d'autre parce que j'ai juste quelques heures par semaine que je peux jouer, mais j'en profite beaucoup le plus possible. Encore là, j'adore les jeux, c'est une passion pour moi, donc je vais toujours continuer à jouer à des jeux vidéo.
La passion reste.
La passion reste.
Est-ce que ça a changé quelque chose ou c'est la même passion depuis le début?
C'est sûr que l'énergie que j'avais, tu sais, des fois je faisais des marathons, là, je pouvais jouer pendant des heures et des heures, tu sais, des overnight, là, tu joues à des jeux, je peux plus faire ça parce que je sais que it's gonna hit hard le lendemain matin parce que les enfants se lèvent, il faut les amener à l'école et tout. Donc ça, il faut que je fasse attention avec ça, mais oui, la passion est quand même toujours là.
Et j'ai une question que j'ai posée beaucoup aujourd'hui puis que j'ai vraiment envie de te poser, mais c'est est-ce que tu es heureux aujourd'hui?
Oui, je suis très heureux aujourd'hui parce que, je te dire, le monde de l'entrepreneuriat, parce qu'il y a une différence entre être passionné de jeux, faire des trucs de jeux vidéo et avoir une entreprise, rouler une business dans ce monde-là. Évidemment, il y a des hauts et des bas. Évidemment, on ne va pas se cacher, la pandémie n'a pas été facile, il y a eu des choses même avant. Donc il y a toute cette partie-là qui a été quand même plus difficile. Mais pour répondre à tes questions, oui, je suis heureux. Et pourquoi je suis heureux? Mais parce que les choses reviennent. On est ici ensemble aujourd'hui. On est face à face, on peut se parler. Donc c'est vraiment un prélude sur qu'est-ce qui s'en vient, comment on va pouvoir continuer à faire des événements comme ça, rencontrer des amis avec qui on joue en ligne la plupart du temps. On est des avatars. Et là, on va revenir sur la vie dans le IRL, si on veut, et pouvoir se rencontrer, faire des activités, des événements, etc. Donc, pour moi, oui, je suis heureux, pour répondre à ta question.
Une question du public que je trouve très bonne. Est-ce que tu penses que le speedrun, ça fait partie du sport électronique?
OK, c'est une très très bonne question. Je pense que le speedrun n'est pas considéré comme étant un sport électronique, mais pourtant, je trouve que oui, le speedrun est un sport électronique et que je m'explique. Ces gens-là doivent se préparer, pratiquer leur run, s'assurer de le faire le plus rapidement possible. Dans le fond, le speedrun, hein, c'est comme un sprinter. Si on essaie de comparer dans le monde du sport électronique, je dirais que c'est ça, c'est comme des sprinters. Donc, ils doivent se préparer pour aller le plus rapidement possible pour atteindre leur but. Donc, pour moi, ce sens-là, c'est ça, c'est du e-sport parce qu'on parle d'un jeu vidéo, on parle de la préparation pour performer, on compétitionne contre une autre personne, souvent c'est ça, hein, quand on fait un speedrun, on compétitionne pour battre le temps de l'autre. Donc tout ça me fait dire que c'est un sport électronique. C'est un différent sport électronique que League of Legends, par exemple, ou Clash of Clans, mais pour moi, c'en est un. Puis éventuellement, ça va devenir de plus en plus... En fait, c'est quand même très, très, très populaire. Mais je pense que ça va devenir encore de plus en plus populaire. Nous, de notre côté, on sait qu'on travaille avec des partenaires qui en font beaucoup de speedrun, puis on va continuer à en faire avec eux.
Ouais, ça c'est super cool. Il nous reste juste quelques secondes, peut-être une toute mini dernière question. Le jeu vidéo, souvent quand tu sais, la communauté des gamers, quand on pense au sport électronique, on pense à cette communauté des hardcore, et du PC console. Est-ce qu'il y a du e-sport sur mobile?
Oui, il y a du e-sport sur mobile et le e-sport sur mobile se développe de plus en plus. Alors, je m'explique. Peut-être pas nécessairement en Amérique du Nord, il y en a quand même un peu moins, mais tout le côté asiatique, Asia, Southeast Asia, tout ça, c'est très, très, très fort. Et ça devient, et en Europe aussi, par exemple, on parle des jeux de Supercell comme Clash Royale, Clash of Clans. C'est très, très, très populaire. Nous-mêmes, on a fait des tournois avec Supercell de ce côté-là et ça fonctionne très, très bien. Donc, c'est un milieu qui va boomer très, très rapidement dans les prochaines années. Pourquoi? Parce que les téléphones sont de plus en plus puissants. Il y a même des tournois de Call of Duty ou PUBG Mobile qui sont des millions de dollars de prize pool. Donc, oui, des millions de dollars de remis en prix pour des gens qui sont en train de jouer sur leur téléphone à PUBG Mobile ou à Call of Duty. Donc c'est pour te dire qu'il y a déjà un écosystème qui est très en forme de ce côté-là et qui va grandir. Donc, nous, c'est un genre, quand je parlais tout à l'heure, qu'est-ce qu'on regarde? Le support du publisher, l'écosystème, la communauté. Nous, c'est ce qu'on regarde et c'est pour ça que le jeu mobile, pour nous, on va continuer à aller de ce côté-là.
Merci beaucoup, Karl-Edwin Mitchell, d'être venu nous parler aujourd'hui. Je t'invite à sortir de scène.
Merci.
Les prochains.
Merci tout le monde.
Je vais me lever. Les prochaines personnes que je voudrais accueillir sur scène, on me dit non, je m'en vais. Ok.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Hello everyone. My name is Stephanie Jacroix. I'm the Technovation. Je recommence. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Hello everyone. My name is Stephanie Jacroix. I'm the co-founder of Technovation Montreal, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower, train, and provide tools to the next generation of women in STEM and entrepreneurship by giving them a real opportunity to put their skills in action. Today, I want to talk about technology and girls. And why? Well, we know that technology and AI is shaping the world and future as we know it. And right now, too many people, especially women, young girls, and people of color, still don't have a voice in creating or influencing that technology. So what can we do? So what we do at Technovation is providing an educational and technology program to young girls aged 10 to 18 years old by giving them an opportunity to use and leverage technology to solve a real world problem. So we want girls to see themselves not just as consumers of technology, but we want to see them as creators and developers and builders, that they can use and create those tools that will help them shape the world and tackle those global issues. And so today you will hear the story and the journey of Angela, Celia, Allison, and also Riying, who are past participants and ambassadors of Technovation. They will talk about their journey as they were building a video game and also an app to tackle climate change issues. So girls, the floor is to you.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Ruying Liu et je suis une étudiante de première année au Collège Jean de Brébeuf dans le programme Sciences Lettres et Arts. Donc, je suis une ambassadrice du programme Technovation, mais je suis également une ancienne participante. En fait, j'ai créé une application qui s'appelle Buoyancy, qui contient plusieurs trackers, par exemple de sommeil, de consommation d'eau, pour le tout dans le but de promouvoir la santé mentale, mais aussi sensibiliser sur la crise mondiale d'eau. Donc, aujourd'hui, je suis ici pour discuter avec une équipe qui a participé à Technovation la même année que moi. C'est une équipe de 3 filles maintenant au cégep comme moi et qui ont fait un projet qui se démarque tout à fait à mon avis, qui est vraiment unique et il s'agit d'un jeu vidéo. Donc, je vais inviter sur scène les membres de l'équipe Mobius, Alison Quash, Celia Shi et Angela Lin. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez vous présenter chacune?
OK. Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Célia. Je suis dans le programme Sciences Lettres et Arts à Marianopolis et j'aime vraiment les Rubik's Cube.
Je m'appelle Alison Quatch et je vais aussi à Brébeuf en sciences pures et appliquées et j'aime la robotique.
Allô tout le monde, je m'appelle Angela. Je suis une étudiante au Collège Marianopolis en sciences pures et appliquées et je suis en train d'apprendre l'allemand.
Donc, comment est-ce que vous avez découvert le programme Technovation et qu'est-ce qui vous a motivé à y participer?
Moi, je l'ai découvert grâce à la promotion de notre école secondaire qui a fait la promotion de Technovation. Donc, moi, j'avais un intérêt pour la programmation et la technologie. Et aussi l'aspect social de Technovation, de trouver une solution à un problème dans la communauté. Ça m'a beaucoup attirée. Donc, je voulais vraiment m'inscrire. Puis, donc, j'ai pitché l'idée à Célia et Angela. On était de très bonnes amies et ils ont accepté.
Ouais, ben au début, je voulais pas, là, mais comme à la fin, j'ai accepté avec Célia.
Donc, votre projet se démarque parce que c'est un jeu vidéo. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez nous le présenter un peu plus?
OK, donc on a aussi une vidéo à présenter sur notre jeu vidéo. Et,
Spectrum was so enriching where each of us learned programming such as conditions, variables, and arrays while using Unity's scripting API. We also learned the use of vectors in video games. We planned everything from scratch, such as the rational level design, the user experience, and the visuals. Additionally, the phone vibrates when a player falls in a void. Our app was play-tested by video game industry professionals Eric Batiza, game director of Assassin's Creed, Matthew Smith, an audio director, and Eve Gabouri, a level designer. We spent weeks improving and debugging our game based on their feedback, such as rearranging the platforms and the hitbox, having clearer transitions, and ameliorating the player controls. Our 7 build was our final minimum viable product. Right now, the prototype is available to the public on the website Unity Play.
Donc, l'objectif principal d'un jeu qui s'appelle Spectrum, c'est de sensibiliser les jeunes aux impacts de leurs actions sur l'environnement. Et donc là, les joueurs y apprennent davantage sur des sujets qui sont moins abordés, tels que la pollution numérique, et ces sujets sont divisés en plusieurs chapitres d'entre-jeux. Le premier chapitre de Spectrum se nomme The Dark Side of Technology, et c'est un chapitre qui montre à quel point la pollution numérique en général et les centres de données jouent un grand rôle dans le changement climatique. Et aussi, d'entre-jeux, on a comme une histoire continue au long des chapitres. Et en fait, vous seriez accompagné par un robot qui vous explique ce qui aboutit au monde de Spectrum aujourd'hui, le monde de Spectrum qui est détruit par le changement climatique causé par l'humanité.
C'est vraiment intéressant. Donc, est-ce que quand vous avez commencé votre application, vous aviez déjà des connaissances en codage, vous avez vraiment commencé de zéro?
Moi et Anja, on n'avait vraiment aucune connaissance en codage, mais Alison avait fait un jeu pour son projet personnel en secondaire 5. Donc, elle avait un peu d'expérience. Je pense que ça nous a vraiment beaucoup aidé pendant qu'on faisait notre jeu.
Et est-ce que vous pouvez nous faire part un peu plus du chemin de création, des étapes que vous avez fait pour obtenir le résultat?
Donc, dans le creation process, on avait comme un brainstorm où on écrivait toutes nos idées sur des post-it. Et là, par exemple, on faisait le plot, le character design, level design, et tous les petits trucs, on les écrivait sur les post-it, puis après, on barrait ce qu'on voulait garder, ce qu'on voulait pas garder. Puis,
Donc, Célia et moi, on s'est chargés du business plan. Et le business plan, c'est comme un rapport de 10 pages qui explique en gros notre jeu, nos missions, nos valeurs et nos plans pour le futur aussi. Et je dirais que comme 99% des visuels ont été dessinés à la main sur une application mobile. Donc là, moi, j'ai dessiné le personnage principal et la page menu.
Et vous avez fait ça sur quel outil et plateforme?
On l'a fait sur le moteur de jeu de Unity. Parce que, comme Célia l'avait dit, j'avais fait un projet sur Unity avant, donc ça a vraiment aidé d'avoir un peu de connaissances. Je pense que c'est pour ça qu'on a vraiment décidé de faire un jeu vidéo. Et aussi nos mentors, qui sont là aussi, Brian et Ambre, qui viennent nous voir aujourd'hui.
Oui, ce serait un peu stupide qu'on faisait pas un jeu vidéo, parce qu'ils travaillent les deux dans l'industrie, donc je sais pas là.
OK, donc c'était quoi les défis que vous avez rencontrés en cours de route? Genre, personnellement, c'était quoi vos défis individuels? Et aussi, c'est quoi le plus grand défi commun que vous avez partagé?
Moi, c'était vraiment la rédaction du business plan. Je veux dire, au début, on écrivait vraiment comme au point. On écrivait tout
Straight
au
to the goal. On allait droit au but, là.
Oui, on allait droit au but. Mais là, à la fin, on avait beaucoup trop de pages. Donc là, on devait comme enlever des phrases et tout. Donc, j'ai vraiment trouvé ça la partie la plus dure pour moi.
Puis on s'occupait de différentes parties du projet, comme Célia et Anja, ils faisaient la partie plus business. Et moi, je faisais un peu le côté technologique. Donc, on avait vraiment des défis différents. Que moi, c'était plutôt la programmation et tout. Mais je dirais comme un défi d'équipe. Comme, on voulait vraiment, on était très motivés, on voulait vraiment faire beaucoup de choses. Donc notre défi, c'était comme un peu d'arrêter. On ne pouvait pas arrêter, on voulait toujours ajouter plus et plus. Et même à un moment, notre mentor nous a même chicanés parce qu'on voulait trop ajouter. Et il nous disait comme, si vous faites plus, vous allez ajouter plus de bugs. Donc, on devait aller vraiment au minimum viable product. Hein.
Genre, aussi, à un moment donné, notre personnage a été pris dans les plateformes vraiment beaucoup. Puis il y avait un moment dans un des niveaux où, genre, une des personnes qui a testé était resté pris à sauter au même endroit pour comme 5 minutes. Puis il n'arrivait pas à passer. Puis genre, ouais, on devait changer ça aussi. Là. C'est vraiment...
Donc, vous étiez vraiment l'opposé de « je veux peut-être abandonner parce que c'est trop difficile ».
Non, c'est ça, on était vraiment très motivés et surtout par la passion de nos mentors qui nous poussaient toujours et qui nous donnaient beaucoup de leur temps pour... ils travaillaient, ils avaient un travail, puis tout. Puis le temps qu'ils nous donnaient, on faisait quoi? Comme 3 Zooms par semaine de 3 heures. Et après lesquels on travaillait aussi, on était très motivés.
Et c'est quoi la plus grande chose que vous avez retirée de l'expérience, à votre avis?
Moi, la plus grande chose que j'ai retirée, c'est qu'il faut sortir de... moi, personnellement, qu'il faut sortir d'une zone de confort et que même si on est jeune, on est quand même en mesure d'accomplir de grandes choses. Comme je veux dire, on avait seulement 16 ans lorsqu'on avait créé notre jeu vidéo. Et en plus, on avait comme l'école en même temps et on étudiait comme la moitié de notre temps. Donc, c'est encore plus impressionnant, personnellement. Donc, c'est ça, là.
Moi, je pense que c'est comme tout le... Genre, qu'est-ce qu'il prend pour faire un projet, genre du début à la fin. Il nous donnait les outils de « si tu veux faire un jeu, tu peux aller chercher des ressources. » Vraiment, genre, comme les étapes pour faire un projet. Donc, plus tard, genre, si je veux faire un autre truc, je sais un peu quoi faire, là, genre.
Vous pensez que vous voulez aller dans quoi? Genre, est-ce que le fait de programmer une application, ça vous a donné le goût de continuer dans ça?
Je pense que mon mentor va être vraiment content d'entendre ça, mais genre l'industrie du jeu vidéo, ça m'intéresse vraiment beaucoup maintenant.
Juste par curiosité, est-ce que vous aimez les jeux vidéo ou c'est juste genre, vous voulez programmer, mais vous ne jouez pas à ça d'habitude?
Moi, avant Technovation, je ne jouais pas trop aux jeux vidéo, mais aussi le fait que, à Technovation, on nous apprenait qu'on va faire comme spécifiquement une application mobile. Je pense qu'on voulait juste comme faire quelque chose d'un peu plus différent et faire un jeu vidéo qui serait un peu plus complexe, mais ça a fini... C'était très bien, là, à la fin.
Mais je pense aussi le fait qu'on a fait un jeu vidéo, genre, ça nous a vraiment motivés. Parce que je pense pas que si on aurait fait une application comme plus, genre, normale, I guess.
Ordinaire.
Non, genre, not putting you down, là, genre. C'est OK, mais comme, I think, on aurait, genre, on aurait perdu comme notre motivation, genre.
Motivation, parce que c'est vrai, là, genre, votre jeu vidéo, c'est tellement unique, genre.
Oh, merci.
Donc, est-ce que vous pensez que si vous avez la chance, parce que là, je sais que vous êtes au cégep, puis vous êtes occupé, puis vous êtes aussi comme gay. Fait que, est-ce que vous pensez refaire ou recommander ce programme à d'autres filles?
Moi, en ce moment, j'aurais pas le temps de faire Technovation, mais j'ai vraiment aimé mon expérience. C'est vraiment une expérience gratifiante. Mais là, je suis au cégep, et puis on faisait comme 3 Zooms de 3 heures au moins chaque semaine. C'était vraiment comme time consuming. Mais j'encourage vraiment toutes les filles à participer à ce programme. C'est vraiment un programme qui vous apprend beaucoup de choses et que c'est vraiment enrichissant.
OK, genre aussi, je trouve que, tu sais, même quand Technovation est finie, les mentors ou les ambassadeurs qui étaient là, genre, ils nous... Tu sais, comme, c'est pas fini après Technovation. Si tu veux d'autres ressources, si tu as besoin d'autres expériences, tu peux quand même retourner, genre, aller voir Technovation, puis ils vont te donner des ressources si tu veux continuer plus tard. Donc, ça s'arrête pas, genre, quand ton projet est fini, là.
Ouais, moi aussi, si j'étais pas pour le cégep, j'aurais refait Technovation. Mais tu sais, Technovation, c'était vraiment une bonne opportunité pour nous d'apprendre et de sortir de notre zone de confort. Puis comme je disais, les filles, on ne manque pas d'intérêt pour la technologie, mais plutôt les ressources comme pour nous initier à ce domaine et montrer la place qu'on aurait dans la technologie.
C'est vraiment genre marketed toward genre men.
C'est ça. Mais Technovation, c'est vraiment un bon début pour initier les filles à la technologie et la passion des ambassadrices, des mentors et tout le monde qui faisait les conférences, ça le transmet très bien aux participantes. Et je trouve que même maintenant, en voyant leur passion, ça m'a vraiment passionnée à vouloir continuer ce parcours en technologie.
Mais votre application, est-ce que vous pensez que vous allez, votre application, est-ce que vous pensez que vous allez le continuer ou peut-être créer une autre application ensemble?
Moi, j'aime vraiment notre concept de Spectrum, honnêtement. Genre, je pense, si on a comme plus de temps après, je pense que, ouais, moi, je serais down de continuer.
J'aimerais vraiment ça, faire une autre application ou juste continuer Spectrum. Je pense que ce serait vraiment amusant. Et je pense qu'on pourrait vraiment développer l'application encore plus loin et transmettre un plus gros message aussi sur le changement climatique.
Est-ce que votre application est encore accessible? Parce que moi, j'ai envie de jouer.
Oui, il faudrait demander à Brian, notre mentor, de remettre peut-être en test. Mais sinon, c'est disponible sur le site web Unity Play. C'est disponible pour tout le monde et ce sera toujours là, si vous voulez jouer.
Mais je pense aussi, si vous allez sur YouTube, puis vous cherchez Team Mobius, genre Technovation en 2020, puis comme dans notre vidéo de pitch, il y a le lien en notre jeu. Donc, je pense que ça va être plus facile à trouver.
OK, ouais, ben vous m'enverrez le lien, puis je vais voir. Puis aussi, est-ce que vous êtes personnellement fiers de votre projet, et aussi, comment est-ce que les gens de votre entourage, genre vos amis, votre famille et tout, ont réagi? Parce que c'est comme vous avez fait un jeu vidéo, genre.
Moi, personnellement, je suis vraiment fière de Célia, Alison et moi. On a vraiment travaillé comme fort et c'était vraiment comme un travail colossal. Et puis, quand j'ai montré à quelques amis de ma classe, et puis elles étaient vraiment impressionnées par notre jeu, comme elles étaient toujours comme « Oh my God, t'as fait ça? Oh my God, c'est tellement impressionnant! » Mais là, quand j'ai montré à mes frères et sœurs, eux, ils sont des joueurs, des gamers, pas comme moi, et ils étaient un peu moins impressionnés parce que je pense qu'ils sont habitués à des bons graphiques et dessins, mais là, quand ils ont vu nos graphiques qui sont dessinés un peu à la main, là, ils n'étaient pas très impressionnés. Mais quand même, je suis super fière de mes coéquipiers.
Ils avaient genre des attentes plus élevées parce que...
Mais comme, genre, je pense que quand tu sais pas qu'est-ce qui se passe derrière un jeu vidéo, comme quand tu sais pas le temps qu'il faut, puis pour faire un jeu vidéo, genre, t'arrives pas à apprécier autant. Et comme moi, après Technovation, après mon jeu, genre, j'ai remarqué que quand je jouais à des jeux vidéo, j'arrivais vraiment plus à comme, oh mon Dieu, ok, genre, ils arrivaient à coder ça, genre, oh comment ils ont fait ça, comme, je pense que t'apprécies vraiment plus quand tu sais.
OK. Puis, on en avait parlé un peu tantôt, genre, on avait un peu touché le sujet, genre, des femmes dans le domaine du STEM. Est-ce que vous pouvez, comme, partager votre opinion sur cet enjeu? Genre, est-ce que vous pensez que c'est... Genre, bien sûr que comparé à il y a quelques décennies, la situation est beaucoup meilleure, il y a plus de femmes dans ces domaines, mais qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
OK, je vais parler un peu en anglais aussi, là, parce que je ne suis pas capable de formuler mes mots. Mais j'ai vraiment l'impression que c'est la société qui a mis comme l'idéologie que les femmes sont plus... ils devraient plus aller vers le domaine de la médecine, de l'éducation, et que les hommes, ils devraient plus travailler dans le domaine de STEM. Mais en fait, c'est vraiment faux. Comme, les femmes aussi ont leur place dans le STEM, mais c'est juste que c'est tellement stéréotypé. Comme, historiquement, STEM, c'était comme a male-dominated field. Et puis, c'est sûr qu'aujourd'hui, c'est meilleur, mais quand on voit les statistiques, on voit qu'environ comme 28%, un quart des femmes sont en STEM. Donc, oui, c'est meilleur qu'avant, mais je pense que la place à l'amélioration est quand même encore vraiment présente. Les jeunes filles, en ce moment, elles veulent pas trop aller en STEM parce que je pense qu'elles manquent de role models comme à suivre. Mais c'est ça.
vous avez un role model dans ce domaine que vous pouvez nommer?
Ambry Bryan.
Ambry Bryan.
Non, mais c'est vrai, genre, je vraiment look up to them. Genre, ils sont vraiment passionnés par leur industrie et leur travail. Et ils travaillent vraiment, genre, ça se voit qu'ils travaillent fort et qu'ils adorent leur travail. Donc, ça m'inspire beaucoup.
Mais moi, je pense que c'est pas juste les femmes aussi. Les personnes de couleur, par exemple, quand je vais à des conférences, par exemple, la majorité, c'est comme des white, genre Caucasian, sorry. Puis je sais, il y a encore moins de femmes de couleur ou juste comme les other marginalized groups. Et je pense que c'est pas juste les femmes aussi, là, faut pousser pour les personnes de couleur.
Vous, est-ce que vous voulez plus tard aller dans ce domaine?
Ben, pas trop en technologie ou en jeux vidéo, mais l'ingénierie, ça me passionne vraiment, là. Ouais.
La technologie?
Ben, ah oui, un peu. T'as raison.
Ouais, moi aussi. Moi, je pense que je suis pas mal certaine que je vais aller en technologie. Je suis pas 100% sûre en jeux vidéo, mais c'est une option, là. Peut-être.
Puis toi, Célia?
Ben, comme j'ai dit tantôt, là, genre, je pense que l'industrie du jeu vidéo, genre, c'est vraiment attirant pour moi en ce moment. Puis, ouais, je pense qu'il y a des grandes chances.
Et c'était quoi, juste une question qui vient de me passer par la tête, mais c'était quoi votre partie préférée de l'aventure Technovation?
Moi, c'est faire le jeu. Je trouve que c'est
Ouais, faire le jeu avec mes amis, vraiment, là.
Moi, j'ai tout aimé, vraiment. Le développement du jeu, filmer le pitch, préparer le business plan, ou juste comme les zooms avec les mentors, comme... je me rappelle, on était vraiment bloqués sur quelque chose. On a juste texté Brian comme « On ne sait pas quoi faire, est-ce que vous pouvez nous aider? » Puis après, il nous dit « Est-ce que vous voulez être dans le Zoom? » Genre, on fait un Zoom vraiment rapidement. Puis il était en vacances. Fait que comme la dedication qu'il nous a donnée, c'était vraiment incroyable.
Genre, il y avait aussi vraiment drôle. Comme, je pense que Tyson, c'est elle qui a fait comme 99% du code, mais genre, elle codait jusqu'à genre 10 h du soir, minuit, puis comme elle nous textait à genre 10 h, elle était comme, qu'est-ce qu'on met dans le jeu? Genre, comment est-ce qu'on anime le personnage, je pense. Ah oui, genre, qu'on a animé le personnage, c'était tellement drôle. Comme, il bougeait vraiment bizarrement. Puis là, je devais me filmer, genre, courir en slow motion pour comme référence.
Ouais, on savait pas trop comment comme proportionner les bras et comme coordonner les mouvements, là. C'est ça.
Puis aussi, Ambre nous avait aussi organisé plusieurs conférences avec des professionnels du jeu vidéo. Et ça, c'était vraiment impressionnant de les voir. Ils étaient vraiment passionnés aussi. Et on a vraiment beaucoup appris sur le domaine du jeu vidéo et leur parcours. Puis c'était vraiment intéressant à apprendre.
Ouais, comme ces rencontres étaient vraiment signifiantes parce que chaque professionnel, quand ils parlaient, il y avait tous comme de la passion dans leur voix. On voyait tous qu'ils adoraient vraiment leur métier. Et c'était vraiment ça qui nous ont rendus comme plus déterminés et plus motivés aussi. Comme ces rencontres étaient vraiment signifiantes pour nous.
Mais tu sais, quand vous avez terminé votre projet, genre, c'était quoi la réaction première? Genre, vous avez fait un jeu vidéo. Genre, comment est-ce que vous avez réagi quand vous avez vu le résultat final pour la première fois?
Ça, c'est genre notre bébé un peu. C'est genre, oh my God. Genre, on a fait un jeu. Puis là, on devait le partager, mais comme... Moi, j'étais vraiment excitée de montrer à mes parents puis à mes amis, là, genre.
OK. Je pense qu'on est supposé de prendre des questions du public en ce moment. Fait que s'il y a des questions... OK, bien, moi, j'ai préparé d'autres questions. Genre, j'ai plein de trucs à vous demander parce que c'est intéressant. Fait que, si de nos jours, la technologie, ça prend de plus en plus de place dans la vie de tous les jours, mais aussi, il y a plein d'enjeux reliés à la technologie. Fait qu'on a parlé de la place des femmes et des personnes de couleur dans ces domaines. On a parlé un peu... Bien, en fait, le but de votre projet, c'était de promouvoir l'aspect environnemental, comment les courriels et tout, ça a une empreinte carbone énorme. Mais il y a un autre enjeu qui m'intéresse, puis je voulais demander votre avis sur ça. Donc, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la sécurité en ligne de nos jours, genre du user privacy et tout, tu sais, comme Facebook qui un peu nous stalk, tu sais, quand tu fais une recherche Google sur quelque chose, et là, tout de suite après, il y a une publicité de ça. Genre, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ça? Puis, est-ce que vous avez tenu compte de cet aspect de cet aspect éthique pendant que vous avez créé votre application?
Ben, tu sais, comme tu as dit, nous, on focusait vraiment sur l'aspect environnemental. Donc, dès le départ, on voulait vraiment réduire l'émission de carbone le plus possible. Donc, quand on télécharge le jeu, on n'a pas vraiment besoin de sauvegarder comme
Genre, c'est pas un account qui doit créer,
Ouais,
c'est juste, il y a le jeu, puis c'est tout, genre, il n'y a rien d'autre.
C'est ça. Fait que, on n'a pas vraiment eu besoin de tenir compte, mais je suis sûre que si on continue vraiment à développer, c'est certain que ça aurait été un aspect qu'on aurait dû penser sur. Mais ouais.
Ouais, j'ai aussi l'impression que pour le cadre du concours, il fallait juste faire genre un démo et tout. Genre moi non plus, mon équipe, on n'a pas vraiment pensé à ces aspects. Pas qu'on a négligé, mais on n'a pas eu à penser à ces aspects-là. Comme, je pense aussi notre application, quand tu le désinstalles, tu perds toutes tes données directement. Fait que, ouais. Mais qu'est-ce que vous pensez aussi, genre, de ce que Facebook fait en ce moment et tout?
C'est vraiment différent. Je pense qu'on devrait comme attendre un peu avant de voir ce que ça fait vraiment, vu qu'il n'y a pas vraiment comme other things like this genre, en ce moment. Donc, je pense qu'on devrait attendre juste pour voir.
Puis, donc, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de... Parce que là, j'ai comme un peu épuisé les questions. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de...
On peut parler de Technovation, là, ton expérience.
Mon expérience?
Oui,
Ok.
toi aussi, tu étais une ancienne participante.
Qu'est-ce que vous aimeriez savoir de mon expérience?
Qu'est-ce que tu as aimé de comme ton expérience à Technovation?
Attends, quoi? Je t'entends pas.
Qu'est-ce que tu as aimé de ton expérience à Technovation?
Mais honnêtement, d'abord, je dois dire que moi, mon équipe, on était juste 2 personnes comparé à vous étiez 3. Je voulais aussi vous demander, genre, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la... Genre, désolée de dévier la question, mais qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la charge de travail? Genre est-ce qu'à 3, vous pensez que c'était pas assez ou s'il y avait un 4e membre dans votre équipe?
Moi, je pense que... Moi, je pense à cause de COVID, moi, j'ai eu vraiment beaucoup de trucs que, genre, ça m'a libérée. Comme, je faisais du patin avant, puis là, à cause de COVID, je pouvais pas, donc j'avais vraiment plus de free time. Puis là, je pouvais faire Technovation à la place. Mais sans COVID, genre, j'aurais pas pu faire Technovation.
Non, mais est-ce que vous pensez que toutes les tâches qu'il fallait faire, vous étiez assez de main-d'œuvre pour le faire? Parce que nous, on pensait définitivement que à 2, on n'était pas assez. Genre, on aurait vraiment pu faire une meilleure application si on avait, on va dire, un membre d'équipe de plus, mais...
Oui, c'est toujours mieux d'avoir plus de personnes, mais pour une petite démo comme ça, comme un petit jeu vidéo, moi, je pense que c'était quand même assez.
On a une question du public.
Ça fonctionne-tu? Allô? En fait, je voulais savoir si vous trouviez ça difficile de travailler sur Zoom toujours. Parce que d'habitude, Technovation, c'est en présentiel, mais là, c'était une cohorte qui était totalement remote ou à distance. Fait que comment est-ce que vous avez trouvé ça?
Moi, j'ai vraiment aimé que ce soit en Zoom, parce on gagne du temps, de pas besoin de se déplacer. Aller quelque part, ça peut prendre comme de 10 à 30 minutes. Donc, le temps gagné en faisant des Zooms, c'était vraiment bien. Puis aussi, c'est technologique, fait que
T'apprends à utiliser Zoom en même temps. Moi, je savais pas comment ça fonctionnait. Je suis le genre de personne qui écrit des messages en public, après tout le monde voit. Mais aussi, moi, j'ai l'impression que j'aurais pas fait de Technovation si c'était pas en virtuel. Parce que comme tu as dit, juste se déplacer sur place, ça prend beaucoup de temps, genre en transport en commun. Puis le fait que les rencontres, c'était les soirs de semaine, c'était vraiment nice. Genre, je rentre chez moi, puis je me connecte à Zoom, puis il y a une conférence, puis je peux manger en même temps et tout.
Mais je pense que ça dépend aussi, parce que nous, on est vieux, puis... Ben, vieux, mais on était comme les seniors, puis on savait comment ça marchait, genre Google Doc, on était vraiment familier, on savait comment share. Mais comme, tu sais, j'imagine les équipes qui avaient genre les juniors qui avaient 10 ans, qui n'ont jamais utilisé Google Doc, genre, tu sais, comment ça devait être dur pour eux, là.
Mais aussi comme nous, moi, Célia, Alicenne et moi, on était aussi à la même école. Donc là, quand on savait pas faire quelque chose, on se voyait à l'école, puis comme c'était en présentiel aussi, donc c'était un peu hybride pour nous, là.
Puis d'autres. On peut continuer la discussion qu'on avait tantôt, genre sur...
Ouais, pourquoi tu as créé ton application, genre sur...
moi, c'est parce que je pensais justement en lien avec la pandémie, la santé mentale. Genre, j'étais toujours isolée et tout. Fait que je me suis dit que j'allais en faire un thème principal. Puis aussi, on voulait quelque chose d'autre, genre... parce que moi, mon application, ça s'appelle Buoyancy, parce que Buoyancy, ça veut dire flottabilité, mais ça veut aussi dire, genre... on voulait aussi faire l'aspect, genre, santé mentale, tu sais, genre, je flotte, je suis mentalement correcte. Fait que... c'est ça, fait qu'on a la santé mentale, puis aussi l'eau. On voulait sensibiliser sur quelque chose en lien avec l'environnement. Puis on pense que la crise mondiale d'eau, on n'en parle pas assez de nos jours. Fait que c'est ça le thème. Fait que si tu vois mon application, là, j'ai pas d'image et tout, mais le thème, c'est totalement bleu. Le logo, il y a de l'eau dessus, puis c'est ça.
Je sais qu'à Technovation, quand on faisait, il y avait des workshops aussi, puis il y avait des personnes qui présentaient. Genre, moi, je trouve que c'est nice quand on présentait parce qu'on rencontrait comme d'autres personnes dans l'industrie qui venaient parler de leur expérience, mais aussi comment faire une application. Genre, ils donnaient comme des cours, I guess, de business puis de codage. Puis genre, moi, j'ai vraiment aimé ça.
Est-ce que vous pensez que les conférences, à chaque semaine, il y avait un conférencier qui présente un sujet, genre un domaine d'expertise. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'était utile ou il y en a certains que vous préférez plus que d'autres?
Nous, vu qu'on faisait un jeu vidéo, genre, c'est pas vraiment
utile.
Genre, ouais, c'est pas relevant pour nous, I guess. So, nous, on faisait un zoom sur notre côté, mais genre, toi, t'étais-tu présente au workshop, genre, tout le temps?
Mais j'étais présente au workshop parce que, honnêtement, moi, je savais rien en technologie avant. Fait que c'était... Genre, j'ai appris plein de trucs. Fait que, ouais.
Mais genre, c'était comment? Parce que nous, on est allé à genre presque aucun workshop.
Vous avez quand même fait un beau projet.
Non, ouais, c'est ça, mais parce qu'on travaille de notre côté, mais genre, c'était comment les workshops, en fait? Genre, toi, t'avais, genre... Vu que nous, on n'a jamais vu ça.
Quoi?
Genre, c'était comment les workshops, I guess?
Ben, honnêtement, je faisais juste écouter en faisant peut-être d'autres choses des fois. Puis, il y en a que je comprenais moins, comme ceux qui nous disaient étape par étape quoi faire pour programmer un truc. Genre ça, je ne suivais pas parce qu'en plus, je devais load Zoom. Mon ordi était vraiment lent. Mais j'aimais plus les workshops genre, où ils te disaient des liens ou trouver des images. Genre, je me souviens qu'on m'a introduit à Pixabay, genre, les images free, gratuites et tout. Puis c'est ça que j'ai retenu. Pas trop, genre, technologique. You know?
Mais toi, comment toi, t'as découvert Technovation, en fait?
Quoi?
Comment toi, t'as découvert Technovation?
Ah, ben moi, c'est parce qu'il y a d'autres ambassadrices que je connaissais en personne aussi. Et aussi, je voyais plein de publicités de ça. Fait que j'ai juste dit que j'allais le faire. Au début, j'avais pas d'équipe, mais comme Alicia, j'ai forcé mon amie à le faire avec moi. Réellement, c'était incroyable. Puis nos mentors sont justement, ils nous donnent du temps gratuit. Puis on est comme amis avec eux. Comme nous, moi, c'était Elisabeth et Jean-Samuel. Il y en a une qui est... Elisabeth, elle est avocate. Puis Jean-Samuel, il travaille pour Shopify. Puis c'est comme... Ils nous partagent des informations sur leur carrière et tout. Puis ça m'inspire. Comme moi, je voulais peut-être suivre la même carrière qu'Elisabeth puis tout. Puis je fais juste lui poser des questions puis elle me répond. C'est nice.
Ouais. Mais genre, même quand on faisait des Zooms qui étaient supposés être sur notre jeu vidéo, mais genre à la fin, on faisait juste avoir comme des conversations qui étaient genre même pas sur l'application.
Littéralement, genre, ça prenait... Ouais. C'est bon, c'est fini. Bon, merci beaucoup.
Merci.
C'est vraiment nice de vous parler.
Merci beaucoup d'avoir été là. Je vous laisse sortir de scène tranquillement. Prenez votre temps. Merci vraiment beaucoup. Elles sont extraordinaires quand même. Elles sont extraordinaires. J'en parlais avec une autre de nos conférencières backstage qui me disait c'est incroyable de voir des jeunes filles de cet âge-là qui ont fait un jeu vidéo. Moi, je ne pouvais pas faire ça de mon temps. Comme extraordinaire. Puis on en a d'autres. I'm going to go back to English. And the next person I want to invite on stage is he's an entrepreneur. Oh, yeah. I need to remove my mask. I had two people looking at me, making crazy gestures for the mask, sorry. Better be safe. So the next person that I'm going to invite on stage is an entrepreneur. He is sticking close to his values every time. He loves building communities, and that's something he does really well. And today he's going to come on stage to tell you about his vision on how startups and entrepreneurship is an insurance for our future, and it's going to help us make sure that our future is going to be beautiful. Louis-Félix Binet, join me on stage. He's leading La Main.
Merci Florian, thank you. Bonjour tout le monde. I'll do my talk in English because I prepared it in English before there was this kerfuffle about we need to speak French. But I just want to be very open. I can take questions in French, Spanish, English, Portuguese, German, whatever, okay? So my name is Louis-Félix Binet. I manage a network of business accelerators and incubators all across the province of Quebec, in urban areas, rural areas. But I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to make a point, which Florian said is that, in my opinion, startups are our best insurance policy for the future. Now, I understand that some of you might not be interested in startups or might not agree with my point. So since we have 20 minutes more or less together, I decided to take the first half of my talk to introduce two metaphors, two lenses through which we can look at the problem. And if you don't care about startups, you'll still learn something from the first 10 minutes of my talk. And if you don't agree with me, then we'll have set a basis on which we can debate and hopefully have a fruitful debate and a fun debate. And so I look forward to questions. All right, so let's start with, there's a few metaphors that I've been using over the years to help me make sense of some problems, some dilemmas that I'm facing. And over the years, I've started building sort of a group of them, and I'm going to share two of them with you today. I did not invent them, okay? I'm just sharing them with you. The first one is the image of the cathedral and the bazaar, okay? You can see a cathedral or any sort of big temple, mosque, or whatever, and you can see usually close or around it the image of a bazaar, a market, or a marché, a souk, a place where people gather informally. So you see how these two things are very different. Actually, that image was suggested by an author, Eric Raymond, who wrote about Linux and the sort of open system of coding, which we heard about in Hillary's talk earlier. So why the image for me is symbolic and important to understand what I'm going to talk about. Usually, if you travel around the world, you go in an old city with a lot of history. At the center, there's a temple, a cathedral, and there's also a space for markets. Usually, the market or the bazaar that was there before the cathedral was built. It has been there a long time. Yet the cathedral has become sort of this monolith, this big thing. And I like this idea because a lot of our society is organized around these two dynamics. The cathedrals are the big institutions, the big companies, the big institutions, companies that we revolve around, that our society's been built around. Yet the bazaar is where a lot of things can happen really fast, where the word of mouth goes around really fast. I'll give you an example. If you walk into a market, a souk, a bazaar, and ask for red shoes, and you go from booth to booth, stall to stall, and you ask for red shoes, and nobody has red shoes to sell you, and a few other people the same day come in and ask for red shoes, maybe within a day or two, at most a week, a number of merchants in the bazaar will have red shoes for sale. It takes just a couple days for the bazaar to address the new demand for red shoes. Obviously, I didn't find any red shoes at the bazaar today, but I'll go tomorrow and maybe I'll find some. In the cathedral, it might take years, decades, if not centuries, for you to be allowed to walk in with red shoes. The rules of the cathedral are very strict. The rules of the bazaar are really, really loose. That image you can take and use and look and project it on a lot of things. If you're in school, you can project it on how the school system works and how things go in the informal channels around the school. If you work in a big company, within a big company that might be in itself a cathedral in the economic space, in the big company you have all of these rules that people say, oh, we've always done this way, and that's why we'll keep doing it this way, and that's the cathedral. Yet around, you got people sort of talking together, exchanging, making progress, trying to change things, and eventually maybe even bring some change into the institutional memory or knowledge of the cathedral. So I want you to take this image, the cathedral and the bazaar, put it in the corner of your mind, and I'll give you a second image that we can look at. The second image that I like, again, I did not invent this. I heard it somewhere and I just integrated it into my thinking. The second image that I really, really like is the idea that culture, the culture around us, the codes that we use to speak together, that's our language, that's our art, that's our way of living, that's our habits, all the human culture, we could look at it as the operating system for society. You know what an operating system is? If you use a smartphone, you probably have either the Android operating system or the iOS operating system, which is the code, the basic code that makes your hardware work, that recognizes applications and devices that you plug into your phone, your computer, your smartwatch, your home security system. The OS for society is culture. The culture around the world is made of all sorts of different codes that are more or less compatible, code that evolves over time. People come in and propose to society new ways of thinking, new ways of approaching problems, which are new lines of code in our culture. So if you look at our culture evolving over time, we see this sort of big basket, this big GitHub of code evolving and people proposing branches, sometimes evolving for the better, sometimes evolving for the worse, hopefully just temporarily, and also these like little patches of code from around the planet becoming maybe, I hope, more and more compatible in between themselves and having sort of an operating system that's getting more compatible, more translatable, we can understand each other, we can better share and understand things. So if you look at that code, that operating system for our society as something that evolves as people branch some aspects of the code, I want you to look at this code and to frame innovation within that code. What is innovation if you see our culture, our global culture, human culture around the world as code? Innovation is a proposal. It can be hardware, it can be software, it can be a company, it can be a new form of art that comes into that culture and makes parts of that code that manages our life together on this planet better. It revives an old part of the code that we didn't use. It takes a new part of the code, makes it better. It connects two different things together and solves a problem. And innovation is born from these people coming in and seeing in our culture parts of the OS that are not compatible with new devices and saying, I'm going to make these things happen. I'm going to connect these people together and propose something, and people accept it and integrate into their code, and that's innovation. That's what makes our societies not the monolithic blocks that some people would like to see it. Some people would like to say that our societies, the code was written in 1776 or 18 something, and it should stay that way forever, whereas the reality is that we're always hacking our own cultural OS. So let's look at these two things, these two images that I brought you, and I hope that they're useful for you and they can probably help start some arguments, enrich some arguments that you may have with people. I want you to take these two things, and then I'm going to try to make my point. You can agree or not. You can say, well, I don't really like your image, but you can't really be against it. It's just something. But then I'm going to make a point, and there you can totally disagree with me. My point is that startups and startup entrepreneurs, more than startups, the entrepreneurs that have these ideas of companies are collectively our best insurance policy to make sure that we still have a culture on this planet years from now. Why? Well, let's start this. I told you about the cathedral and the bazaar. We have these big institutions. They are made to stand over like decades and centuries over time. They're usually big institutions, government, big companies with usually 3 letters in their names, maybe 4, or a big family name of someone who lived 200 years ago. These big institutions, they can survive little storms. A storm that will flood the bazaar, that will flood the market, that will flood the streets. These institutions can weather a lot of storms. But if a big change was to come, earthquake, major flood, climate change, were to come, there's a big chance that some of these cathedrals may be a little more fragile. You can start seeing cracks in the roofs, and then the light shines in. That's how change happens, Leonard Cohen, our Montreal poet, once sang. So you might see these cathedrals starting to crack at the edges and maybe even falter, fall down. When these cathedrals fall down, it takes years to rebuild. But the next day, there's still people at the bazaar around there. So our startup entrepreneurs, maybe they went to work within a big cathedral. They saw problems in there that say, oh, some of those problems might be universal. Some of those problems might be lived in other big companies. I think I can solve that problem for this cathedral that I'm working in, but they won't let me. So the entrepreneur goes outside the cathedral, into the bazaar, finds other people with whom to exchange, crack that problem, creates a solution, and then goes knock on the door of every cathedral around the world to sell that little solution, that little product, that little service that solves one critical problem. That innovation oftentimes is killed when it's born within the cathedral, but it grows, it is nurtured in the bazaar, in the constant contact of entrepreneurs and tech and geeks trying to solve the issues and the problem. And that creates the innovation. So these entrepreneurs, if there's a big catastrophe, they will have tried to solve all of these little problems that they see, always coming up with new ways. And of course, most of them will fail at what they try to change. A startup is a company that is designed to fail. Why? Not because it's bad, because they're trying something difficult. They're trying a problem that has been paved over and ignored for hundreds of years. They're trying to solve big things, and they will probably fail. But every time they fail, they get better at trying to solve big things. So we had a terrible last year and a half with the pandemic, and all of the other things that the planet saw in terms of natural catastrophes. And these are all problems. We're saying, oh, good God, thank you for the pandemic to be almost over. We can almost meet again almost regularly. But I say, well, it was just one of a wave of maybe a tsunami of things as we continue to meddle with our planet and things. New problems will arise. And guess what? Most probably, cathedrals will falter. Most probably, the bazaar will always be there to come up with new ideas, to find that mythical red shoe that we need to actually go forward in our way of life. And so startup entrepreneurs, they try big things. Oftentimes, they get that idea to try because they face a problem. They face a problem in their job. They face a problem in their community. They see a problem on television, on the internet. They see things happening and they think, well, maybe I have an idea. Maybe I can propose something that would help solve this. And as we nurture this reflex of thinking, maybe I can solve that problem, not just for my family or for my neighbors or for my town. Maybe I can solve it for every town that lives beside rising water, or every town that is stuck in an environment that is being degraded year after year. These entrepreneurs, this reflex of thinking big, is something we need to nurture. That means we actually need to be okay with failure. We need to be okay with helping entrepreneurs starting things that will probably fail, but overall, if 1,000 entrepreneurs start something new, something will come of it. And I know startups have a bad press these days. We hear a lot of things. There's one startup that we're all connected with on our cell phones that I had a hard couple weeks. There's others that are in trial. But I want to tell you, for every startup that gets bad press in the media, there is 1 million startups that are trying amazing things to make sure that we're more resilient towards the next pandemic, that our cities can more rapidly adapt to climate change. There's 1 million startups trying all sorts of new things, not just technological. They're sometimes just innovating in our cultural code, the way we interact. And I want you to believe, and we can debate this, I want you to believe that if we manage to convince and support and nurture the taste for taking huge risking failure in a proportion of our people, saying, you know what, maybe you're not happy trying to work 9 to 5 in your cathedral. Come in the bazaar and invent things with us. If you fail, we'll help you. Because on your second try and your third try, you're going to be better. If we nurture this as societies around the world, we nurture a part of our population to actually be hackers of our cultural code, to actually look at the cathedrals and say, how can I play between the cracks that I see? How can I change something? I can tell you, if we do this, we will have entrepreneurs who will feed off the problems that our societies face. They will come up with our full support with new ideas, new business ideas, and they'll push this. And we don't know yet what will be a successful startup tomorrow. But if we have this growing pool of people who keep trying, and we support them in trying, we will eventually find the right solution to the problems that we're facing. And again, I'm not a techno-evangelist. I don't think that it's all technological. There's a lot of social innovation that needs to be done. But on the whole, having thousands of entrepreneurs in every big cities, in rural areas, trying to crack problems, getting the resources, getting the support, getting the moral support of all of us to say, it's totally crazy. You could have a big paying job in a big 3-letter company. You're leaving that to actually start something with no money, and you're going to try for 2-3 years and maybe you're going to fail. If we support them and say, it's okay. If you need anything, call me, I'll help you. If you need a place to crash for a couple of weeks because you couldn't pay your rent, I'll host you at home. If you need a little love money, we give you all a bit of money so you can get your product, your proof of concept together and go sell it to investors. We'll help you. If we did this, I would be a lot less scared of what the future holds for us, for me, for my kids, for your kids, for all of us. And I'd be a lot more comfortable getting on stage here and telling you that the future is bright. So I want to thank you very much for your time. And again, you might agree or not with me. You might not really care about startups, and that's okay. If we all quit our job and started launching risky companies, the world wouldn't be a better place. But we need some of these entrepreneurs. So I hope this talk was useful. Reminder, the Cathedral and the Bazaar, a great framework to look at how the institutions are working and where is the place, the Bazaar, where we can actually have creative ideas, and the culture as code. Remember, everything we do every day, if we challenge the codes, if we push the boundaries, we don't have to start companies here. If we just push the boundaries of the codes, like if we question, why are we doing this way? Why are we still doing this the way our grandparents or great-grandparents did it? And is it still relevant in today's world? If we keep questioning this, then we'll have a more robust, more resilient cultural code, most resilient operating system for our society. Again, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure. I'll talk to you. I'll take questions through Florian. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Louis Felix. Take a seat, get a drink, whichever you want. It doesn't matter. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know you're doing a lot every day, and you're always moving around, try to get people to start their companies and not be afraid to start their companies, because we know it's a huge thing to overcome. I'd like to go back in the past a little bit with you, because you started with some pretty weird concepts in Montreal and in that startup and entrepreneurship world, with the fucked up nights and the creative mornings. Can you tell us a little bit of how these projects started happening, and what was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, I'll give you a bit of context. So before resettling in Montreal about 10 years ago, I was out of Montreal for 15 years, and I worked as a diplomat. So I was a Canadian diplomat. I represented Canada abroad in the United Nations. I traveled around the world. I was posted in New York for a few years. I saw the financial crisis and the big recession in the U.S. that followed that. The first election of Barack Obama, I was there to cover sort of politics and economics in the U.S. When I came back to Montreal, I realized it was a very happening, very, bustling city. There's so many things happening, so many people trying new things. People were squatting at Notman House and, starting companies and thinking, hey, maybe we can have startups here too. And what I felt is a need to connect people meaningfully around creativity and things like that. And Creative Mornings, which was started in New York City about 15 years ago, was for me a great way to create a strong local creative community, but connect it with similar communities around the world in 200 cities around the world, and be able to share on the topics that we see and connect sort of that operating system that we have. And then Nathalie Rivière, who met people who founded Fuck Up Nights in Mexico. So she met them in Mexico, and they're entrepreneurs who were, sorry for a word, but fucking up. They went and grabbed beers together and talk about their failures and say, it's okay, guys, we're going to help each other. Nathalie met them, and she said, this is such a powerful concept. I want to bring the idea of Fuck Up Nights to Montreal. Can you help me? You've been successful at Creative Mornings. And we started that 5 years ago now, today, more or less. And we've had 30 events, about 100 entrepreneurs coming and sharing very, very deep, personal, scarring stories of failure. And they all told us, I feel stronger for it. The fact that you gave me a crowd, you gave me a safe space where I can come and talk about my failures and share it with others. I'm less scared of trying again, and I'm feeling better about my failure because it's okay. We all do have failures.
I think that's a really important thing to learn, not just for startups, not just for entrepreneurs, for us as human beings. Because I feel that most of us, when we start out in life, when we get out of our studies, and I think there's something maybe in our school system, and we get so scared of failure. And I know, like, for example, for a lot of students in Quebec and everywhere in the world, there's a lot of performance anxiety rising.
Yeah.
And what would be your best advice for these students who are struggling maybe with this kind of anxiety to get beyond that and to heal and to learn to accept failure?
I know it's really hard. I'm raising children at home now, and I see this. Like, we want our children to be so good, and the institutions want to succeed, and they value performance, and that you get grades and get prize for. But honestly, like, what we need when we face this world, and like the world changes a bit, and like you're like, oh, you adapt and you get better. But when the world changes a lot, the cathedrals fall, what do we have in the end? What is our big prize or big like A+ worth if we're all, serving an institution to say, oh, recognize that I'm good? We get nothing. When the cathedral falls, all we're left with is who we are. right? And if we never valued who we are, how we were as an ADD kid or a very creative kid, like, let's all try to be ourselves. Let's try to become better versions of ourselves. And when I chose to leave the foreign service, the diplomacy, and become an entrepreneur, people asked me, why you want to do this? And people thought I was saying, because I want to make a lot of money. I didn't want to make a lot of money. I said, if I remain a diplomat, I can only become the best diplomat that Louis-Félix Binet can be, which is probably not a very good diplomat, because I'm not diplomatic. Well, sometimes I am, but I mean, but if I become an entrepreneur, I want, on that entrepreneurship journey, to become the best Louis-Félix Binet that I can be. And that is very, very key difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes we want to be the best thing that other people want us to be, but we cannot forget that we can only be our best selves. And when, can I say that, shit hits the fan, we will need to be the better versions of ourselves. And we need to find ways within our institutions, but I hope that the bazaar, the startup world, the creative world, the adventures of entering tech programming competitions are opportunities not just to show the world that we can be good at something, but to prove ourselves that we can be good at something, so that when push comes to shove, we have the skills, we have the mindset to actually, in the Mad Max world, it's not the technology of yesterday that works. It's our ability to actually, go with the flow and invent new things, and that starts right here.
That's a powerful message. We have a question from the audience, from Valentin. He's asking, how can we avoid the exode of tech talents and startups from countries, regions to our big cities, and maybe even promote the other way around?
Yeah, that's a big issue that we're trying to tackle. There's this idea, and it's based on reality, that it's easier to start up. It's easier to succeed as a startup in the big city, because big cities, or urban centers like Montreal, they're accelerators in the way they're made. They're accelerators of human connection. You go to a cafe, you walk down a street in a popular neighborhood, and you meet people who you have a very weak connection with. And you're like, oh, maybe we could have a project together. We could start a band, or we could start a company, or we can have an art project. And it's easy to do in the city, because there's a concentration of all sorts of different competences. It's harder to do in more rural areas, because they have like these institutions. They've been doing ways for and they don't for a lot of time, and they don't really have the same density of and diversity. But I think we can work, and it's part of our work. We can work on trying to build the right connections. And I mean, the pandemic showed us that we can do a lot of work remote, right? And we create the right amount of connections that we can reproduce the sort of serendipity that you get in the city, but reproduce it through networks with people who want to start up a company, I don't know, in a remote region, in Abitibi or in Île-de-la-Madeleine, and create the right amount of connections, the right opportunities to meet, exchange. And I'm saying between regions in Quebec, but also all around the world, with other people who share this same problem. And I think we cannot undervalue that a lot of the problems that will live because of climate change will be perceptible outside the big cities. Right here in downtown Montreal, we're insulated from a lot of the problems that climate change is bringing onto this world. So it's really hard for us, from our little comfortable downtown Montreal location office, to say, oh, we should really do something about this. It's much more evident when you're by the side of the water that used to be 100 meters away, and now it's half in your basement, or when you see tall swaths of grass burning just because of heat waves and stuff. So I think a lot of the problems will be perceptible from outside big cities, and we need to take whatever it is that makes us capable of sustaining startups in big cities. We need to take these resources and push it towards the entrepreneurs. And so the exodus needs to be the other way around. It should be on the entrepreneur. Oh, I want to succeed as a startup. I need to move to Montreal or New York City or Boston. No. The resources here in Boston, investors, coaches, startup entrepreneurship centers, we need to be out there and meet the startups, entrepreneurs where they live and provide them with the service that they have, because they're probably going to be much more successful if they can build their companies from their towns and create value for that town. And I always say, all we need is one crazy entrepreneur to start a crazy project in town to succeed. And within a year, 5 years, a decade, there'll be a dozen startup entrepreneurs in all those towns. So there's a lot more potential there.
So what you're saying is we just have to share knowledge.
Yes, share, propagate knowledge, move around, get off of your comfy downtown seat and get out there and meet the real people who face real problems in the real world.
What a perfect way to conclude this session, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, Louis Felix. I'm going to invite you to leave the stage.
Thank you.
And, well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Big applause for Louis Felix. And I'm going to invite Laura Liston to come on stage, and I'm going to give you the end of the day. Thank you.
Hello. I'm excited for our next guest. As creative director of Moment Factory, our next guest spends his days exploring the ways in which cutting-edge technology can capture the magic of light, sound, and movement. With the focus on the transformative power of digital technology, Fady Atala leads projects that activate urban environments through multimedia shows and installations that heighten the meaning of public spaces, breathing new life into architecture and infrastructure. Please join me in welcoming Fady to the stage.
Hi everyone, my voice is great. I'm very happy to be here. I'm Fady, I work at Moment Factory, creative director for the Cities Group. And we will be talking today about how multimedia is changing and shaping our experience of the urban space. And I'll be telling you about that as we move into the conversation. I found that this quote reflected a bit the talk that I want to do today, because on one hand, the second paragraph talks about the importance of public space, of how important it is to meet with people face to face and create these public interactions for so many benefits, social and cultural benefits. And also it talks about the transdisciplinarity of our work. And I think this is a very relevant topic for this conference. So as we move into it, I'll just do a brief description of Moment Factory and how we work, and then I'll go over a couple of projects that are really interesting in how they are changing our experience of the city. So Moment Factory is an entertainment studio, a multimedia entertainment studio, and we are really kind of cover 360, the whole range of creation, technology, and operations of multimedia systems. So primarily it's a creative company, and we create really ways for people to engage with each other in the public space. And that is our motto. Obviously a lot of conversations happening nowadays about being connected, about being together, but in the virtual world. For us, bringing people together in the physical world is what matters. So it's always the starting point versus other ways of connecting. And that idea of getting together around the campfire, for us, multimedia is a digital campfire. So it kind of brings warmth and opens the doors of imagination for people. We are quite a big company now and still growing, 375 people, most of them based here in Montreal. So we are an independent Montreal company where the production mostly happens, but we also have our offices in Paris, in Tokyo, in a couple of other cities, Singapore and New York. But most of the productions happen here. So we really operate globally with clients all over the world. And this is our iconic project in Montreal. I'll just go over it quickly. It is a project that is rethinking the role of infrastructure and how infrastructure can be more than just a transportation mechanism. This is the Jacques Cartier Bridge that we have, with other companies, created a sculpture of. So it's a sculpture that is multimedia sculpture, kind of thinking about other ways to interpret a smart city with data feeding the installation and changing its behavior on a daily basis, depending on what is happening in the city, traffic, weather, but also online conversations. When we talk about our work in our group in cities, we use the concept of placemaking quite a bit. The idea is to start with concepts of what we want the space to be and what we feel is the identity of this place and how it can be expressed in multimedia. And then we have all sorts of other tools and ways to engage with the public. So whether they are interactive tools, we've started incorporating some of the AR and other technologies while still being in the physical space. So we're not really in the VR world, more into extending reality onto the digital or from the digital, but staying physically together. And we use a lot of light, but light coming out of all sorts of mediums, so whether light, but also video for us. So we operate mostly at night, which is where the light is most relevant and often supported by sound. So you see we have to cover a large range of creative expertise at the content level. The company started doing shows, so we were very much involved, and we did some work with Madonna, Billie Eilish, etc. And this is still going, but the company expanded into something that is more permanent, and that's where our group comes in. Cities, where we work on public infrastructure, we work on retail, on art venues, and so on, so that we kind of think about the wide range of interactions we have in the urban space. And we will be going over some of these as we move into the conversation, because I think a lot of the people that are listening now are kind of questioning in which direction they should go in. And we are a company that is really transdisciplinary, that has a very wide range of expertise, and that's what's really exciting and very different from other smaller studios where maybe they are more focused by their size on specific expertise. So we have people that start from creative, art direction, creation background, but also going all the way into deep technologies. Our capabilities in technology design are quite advanced. We have also producers, we have an interactive department, and of course all the content department, the ability to create images in motion and 3D and so on. A lot of scenography in our work. So how do we think about a space, and how does multimedia inhabit the space and change it? So these are the three main our competencies, like centers of competencies, where our team is grouped within each of these. But we also have people like me and other producers that are more facing outwards towards the client and leading the teams internally. So we can go and get different expertise from different departments such as these, plus operations, etc. So multimedia and architecture, which is the topic of my talk today, I'll go over three projects. This is a project we did in Ottawa back in 2017. And the idea you see here that the facade, and of course we know a lot of the facade lighting and what they mean, but in this case, it was not just decorating a facade. The facade became a way for people to engage with the art center in Ottawa, where some of the content, the art that was happening inside, was being transmitted outside, and was also a way for the audience to be able to, the audience or the creators, to be able to create and change the way the building is and looked. So there's many ways to have either messaging when there is something happening on the facade, but also artists contributing to the platform and being able to change constantly. So the idea of programming a facade and a facade being a reflection of what's happening inside or around and how it can animate the public space and change the interaction we might have in the public space based on what's happening. So it was pretty not limited, but constrained in what it did, but still, it was a transparent screen, so you can also, during the day, see what's happening inside. Then there's this other project that is more of an internal space, and I'm bringing it up because with this project, we are kind of pushing forward the idea of programmability. How do you program a space with its walls, if they were walls, or its kind of skin being able to express different things at different moments. So this is a 25 Broadway in New York City, a very kind of heritage site, amazing, beautiful, but pretty kind of classic. And what we did is to inhabit it with multimedia while still respecting its own architecture. So we couldn't like put a nail in the wall or anything. So we kind of dressed it up so that it could program many events. So you can have shows, but you can also have events that are happening in there, private, public events. So I'll show you a small clip about that. So this is what it looks like after we have done intervention. So there's, if I'm not mistaken, about 16 projectors. So we've done the scenography, meaning how do we inhabit the space physically? What are the setup to be able to, when we scan the space in 3D, then being able to kind of cover it 360 and be able to display shows in there. So what this allows us to do is to go over different stages, and just a sample of what it could be, where it could be a playground in some cases where the content is more interactive and allows for more movement, but also it can, we can think about it as a space for digital art or sometimes event. So you can kind of create custom content for the event, such as this, for instance, where the whole environment would change. So you're immersed in a different setting, and that opens many, many new possibilities in your imagination on where you could be and how you could engage with the space and with other people around you. So this is a way this is our idea of a programmable space, the ability to change the nature of a space as you move into it. So I'll just show you a small video. This is a show that we've done within that context called Super Real. So by doing this show, maybe the volume is a bit high, by doing this show, we were able to sell tickets, kind of creating a new use for the space. So it's a ticketed show that is produced there, but also space could be rented for events with different content. So there's, as you see, different experiences we can have in that space. And this project I'll talk more extensively about because I was actually directly involved in it for about 1.5 to 2 years. It's the AT&T headquarters in downtown Dallas. AT&T by that time had bought Time Warner, so they were shifting into something more grand. So they took the whole square around their headquarters and all the buildings that were around it that were pretty historical. So they hosted like the first call centers, and all the switches, etc., were in some of these buildings. And they turned it into a cultural district in downtown Dallas that did not have really a destination per se where people can go and hang out. Of course, you had the commercial street, but typically, as in many American cities, downtown tends to be quite empty in the evening because people have moved to the suburbs. So the idea of recreating an attraction downtown was really the vision that they had for the space. So they hired Gensler, the architecture company that developed the whole space, and they put a globe that you kind of see in here at the center, a giant wall, multimedia screen, about 104 foot tall high, and maybe 2/3 width around the building, and all the lights that you see in there are also connected to, and they're addressable, so you're able to animate all the lights and the movements in it. So we were approached by Gensler and AT&T, and to come up with the content strategy and how do we inhabit that space, how do we live with different types of or levels of energy throughout the day, where during daytime it's a workspace, so you need to kind of tone down the intensity of the content, and whereas at night you want to make it a happening place. They had many restaurants and bars that they opened around the plaza, and they wanted people to be able to kind of change the mindset. So this is what multimedia allows you to do that typical architecture does not. Yeah, thank you.
AT&T and global architecture firm Gensler enlisted Moment Factory's creative and technical teams to reimagine the AT&T Discovery District in downtown Dallas. This one-of-a-kind plaza was redesigned to reflect the mood and energy of the community, with dynamic media architecture that leverages art, light, sound, and technology. A 104-foot media wall towers as the focal point of the district, providing a high-definition canvas for a variety of cinematic experiences. Behind the scenes, a custom-made technology platform centralizes the content management system and show controls, and connects the media wall with the LED-lined trellis and interactive globe. This innovative network empowers AT&T to activate individual elements or synchronize the full orchestration of video, content, light, and music to transform the plaza into a fully immersive digital ecosystem. Evolving over a 24-hour period, high-impact and ambient visualizations offer moments of collective enjoyment, relaxation, and exploration. Through a partnership with Epic Games, our teams were able to unlock the potential of the Unreal video game engine, opening up endless narrative portals for discovery. Wind and solar data powers a rendering of a vibrant neighborhood that inspires onlookers to imagine how natural energy can be used to transform cities. By approaching data as a storytelling tool, we can create generative multimedia content based on real-time inputs, fusing physical and digital worlds together. Blurring the boundary between real and unreal, the facade shifts into moving blocks, morphs into a colossal digital statue, and voyages through space on currents of solar wind data, creating ever-evolving content. In the evenings, a digital dance performance takes over the square, with sequences that explore the complex relationship between humans and technology. Each journey gives a subtle nod to AT&T's history and future. One district, endless discovery.
So you see, when we talk about transdisciplinarity, I don't think there's a project that can kind of talk to it more than this project, because it covered all types of expertise, and you've heard many of them. So of course, any kind of experience in creating video or content, images, sound came into play at the content creation level. We had about 14 different what we call capsules, so video chunks going from 2 minutes to 7 hours. But also so that's kind of, usually what we do that is in pre-rendered, but in this case, given the size of the screen, the files were so big that we moved everything into a dynamic engine. So game engines are powering most of the content that is playing, which means that there's an engine that's kind of like a video game, creating the different elements of the video in real time, mostly based on Unreal. I'm sure there's many forget the name of the game, but players that are using Unreal Engine for their games. So for us, the video content was creating using Unreal, so that required a lot of expertise. For instance, you saw the travel in space, and that's a 7-hour trip in the solar system, because AT&T invented a radio telescope that could visualize the radio and magnetic waves around planets. So we were able to recreate that trip based on the real data coming from representing the positions of the planets every day. So every day it's recreating this voyage based on where the planets are actually positioned in space with their moons and so on. So that was quite a feat, because the screen is huge, and the ability to create dynamic content, not on a small screen that you have at home for your video game or even a big one, but on 100-foot high screen was quite a feat. Also, we did all the CMS, the content delivery system, and the media system, so the client could change and add and replace and program the content at will. And as you see, there's basically, it's not a TV. Really, all the content are original for this public space. So the idea of having this as a new channel for entertainment and culture in a public space versus just transmitting sports and other things. And there's also many events around there. So there's about 100 people. I think last time I counted were about 100 people that were involved in the production of this project, covering technology, software development, content, sound, and creative developers that were able to take visuals and kind of translate them into engines such as Unreal. And I think we have a couple in Touch Designer as well, a couple of capsules. And the last piece that I'll talk about for the last minute is a direction that we're also taking now, where we're using multimedia to enhance and augment gaming. So whether sports or just games in the public space. You might recognize some of these games that you played on console. We recreated them in the physical space. So for instance, you can have a skating gig such as this one, where the floor is reacting to the skaters. The audience can interact with the skaters by sending different elements on the media platform. This is another project we did in Singapore, but also this is an arena that was covered by screens, and then the whole ground can be shifting and creating different, whether for training or for just for play, and creating different games, different interactions between people, but also people through the media shifting in the physical space. So we always do it in public, and I just wanted to go back to this idea that a company like ours, and there are quite a few in the world, not always as big or with such a breadth of expertise, but there are many, and it really combines, and that's pretty much the work that people like me and other people in the company do, which is to combine all the different expertise into a single output that is creating and shifting the experience we have of our cities. Thank you.
Do you have time to stay for a few audience questions with me?
Yes.
Wonderful. So for those of you who are here, please raise your hand or put your questions into Slido. For those of you who are at home, I have a question right off the top. I'm super curious. Obviously you really work in public spaces, which have been hugely impacted by the events of the past 2 years. So I'm curious about how you had to, pivot or modify your work due to pandemic restrictions.
Yeah, well, we have our projects are typically cities are 2 to 3 year long projects in general, because they require a lot of infrastructure, especially the ones we do in whether in airports or in other areas. But a lot of our work, including the Luminas, which are the night walks in the park, we managed to do a lot of pacing and how we can kind of pace the experience in the physical space. But definitely we feel that people are really concerned about how to reanimate the public space in the future.
Right.
And of course, because some people are happy working at home. I'm not. I just want to go back out and be with other people, and so do I think many of us will want to do that. Everybody's excited about the 15th, where people want to go back dancing. But I think the need for rethinking public space and how it works is going to come back in a big way.
For sure. One thing I also noticed, if I may ask a follow-up question, is that you do retail flagship spaces, which were hugely disrupted with all this e-commerce online. So I'm curious what you think physical spaces like that are going to have to do to, you know, really make people show up and come back and not just click a button at home.
I think people will want to see something else. I think the experience we're having with our media at home, whether phone or other visual media we have in our homes, they want to see them. And frankly, I was surprised at the demand we have to kind of create that media in the physical space. So people want to go beyond just kind of, whether trying clothes or buying products. They want to be in a space that inspires them. And this is pretty much what we're hoping to do every single time.
Great. We have so many questions here, so I will, unselfishly start to read some of them. We've got a good one that asks, while the tech is really impressive and beautiful when used for art, should any of us be worried to see, a advertisement dystopia a la Blade Runner? Does this worry you?
Well, I think that's where I was very excited when we did AT&T, and they were really kind of adamant, at least when they started the project, that this is not a platform for advertising. We want to really create content for the public space, to have people come over, etc. Now, sometimes they put on a trailer for a movie, etc., but they're kind of advertising for a movie, but in itself it has value because it gets people excited. There's a Dune trailer or something, everybody gets excited about. Wonder Woman was launched in the district. But frankly, when we get requests like that, and often we are getting requests, and they're saying, there won't be advertising on the screen. We want people to be there and enjoy the experience. That's kind of course.
Okay, so you separate church and state in a way.
We try to do that. Sometimes they ask for advertising, and we've tried to find a way to kind of, and we did that in Shinjuku Station in Tokyo, where we kind of mixed the advertising and content to create a balance between the two.
Okay.
And kind of inhabit the space in an interesting way.
Very cool. I have another great question here, asking about your thoughts on the battle between creating original content versus using recycled content that's been augmented for your clients.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We are having similar conversations in the company right now, where often we are asked to create. I mean, when you talk to a company like Moment Factory, it's like we need to do something that does that. So there's always what plays in downtown Dallas is probably going to be different from what you want to play in Toronto or in Montreal, because the space is different. So people are looking for content that is original, and that kind of reflects the identity of a place and creates the specific energy to that place. So we're not into recycling. This being said, sometimes you have paintings, same painting that could be in two different places, and it could also have sense to have them. But for our majority of our work, it's all pure.
And it seems like you're integrating a lot of the history or a lot of the stuff that's there, as you did with AT&T.
Yeah.
You really incorporated some of the projects that they had done to give it new life. Almost.
Yeah. And for instance, when I talked about the space piece, really kind of instead of just kind of doing promo for AT&T, it's okay. What did you do to change the world? And then you changed the world by creating this telescope and the ability to visualize space. So we took it and created a voyage into space that could see something like that. So.
Yeah, way more interesting than an advertisement.
Yes,
100%.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of questions here that are sort of on the topic of talent, if I may.
Absolutely.
One of them, the first one, is do you ever experience sort of a talent war with other VFX companies, or is the talent pipeline an issue for you?
It is for us and for every other company right now. And I was having this conversation actually with someone a bit earlier. I think people look for different things when they look for work. And the confinement is not necessarily helping companies, because I feel personally that people are detached from their colleagues and their companies. They're working from home. Kind of, if I'm interacting with a colleague XY and it's going to be A and B on the other hand, and I'm paid more, I'm just going to go because I have no emotional attachment. So I think the ability to create company culture that is strong enough to attract the right talent is going to be key as we move forward. And how do we bring people back to be part of something that is meaningful to them and to the world is going to be the key. But yes, for sure, gaming companies are growing fast. Every online company is kind of attracting a lot of talent, for sure.
Okay. And so the next questions I have about talent are really about sort of our audience are early in their careers or just beginning their careers. How does Moment Factory bring students or early stage professionals to join? Is it on the logistics side or on the creative side, or where is there a fit for early starters?
Well, I think a creative talent doesn't like wait for them. They don't wait for people to finish their studies to start creating stuff.
Okay.
Usually they have portfolios, they are involved, they have a kind of a kick on something that they like to push on their own time, and kind of a creative endeavor that is motivating them. So I think this plays into what kind of creative you are. And the company encourages a lot movement, horizontal movement. So you could be a motion designer that ends up being a director or working in cities, and then ultimately you want to move and work in museums. So I think movement within the company as you kind of grow and perfect your art and interested in new things, that's something we encourage a lot, to have people kind of learn, constantly learning. And then we have an MF school, so we help people, we train people when they come in on the tools and the way we work in the company.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
That was the next question, was about the program. So it's called MF School.
Yeah, Moment Factory School. So when
Great.
you're in, you're like well taken care of for onboarding in work and kind of training, but also there's all sorts of know-how that is shared with people.
Great. And for students who are looking to stand out, what are you looking for when someone's coming through the door?
A really exceptional talent. I think that's where it is. People who just kind of are interested in this kind of stuff, and that they care about. For sure now there's a big need for this creative technology and the ability to transform media.
Okay.
So Unreal is a big thing. So if anyone's interested in programming, creative programming, Unreal is getting really, really big. We also work with Unity and Touch Designer. These are kind of expertise that are really interesting for us. Interactivity is very interesting. The new extended reality, different aspects of it are getting interesting. So I think just push your own projects, and I think you'll get noticed.
Cool. I've got another few minutes, so I really want to get to these questions. A lot of speakers here at Campus Party spoke about industry disruptors. For your company, Moment Factory, what's the next big disruptor that you're looking at, and maybe that will impact you?
Well, we're fundamentally really big on content. So the content is the ability to create visual, audio, things that inhabit our multimedia. So that's always going to be something that drives us. And there are many ways. We talked about real-time content, so the ability to incorporate data into the content, and the content adjusting and being responsive to whatever factors around it. So that's big, using game engines and other things. Data for sure, and the ability to program with data and being able to do that. And inevitably the AR, the XR world is something that we're looking at and see how we can adapt it to our own.
And everyone's, this makes me think everyone's talking about the metaverse right now. Is this something you're looking into?
Yeah, we are having big conversations around that, and I think that's where I mentioned we do it in public. For us, getting people, at least that's our position right now, is getting people into physical space is where it starts, and then we can extend it into other worlds, and being able to attend something even if you're not there. But fundamentally, we think there should be a physical experience.
Okay, cool. I know we're out of time, but I have one last question for you, because I think it's so important. And Elon sent in a good question. Moment Factory projects are inspiring, but there's still a gap, a gender gap, and a gap in people of color in these workspaces. So what is Moment Factory doing to create a more inclusive environment?
Yeah, that's a big conversation right now. So we hired people to help us with that. We have an internal group. I'm actually part of a group, a DEI group, that is trying to figure out how we can kind of incorporate that space, because it's on everyone's mind these days. How do we kind of create increased diversity and get people from all different backgrounds into our company, male, female of course, but also all sorts of elements. So that's a ongoing big conversation.
Yeah.
Very important.
Big important. Well, thank you so much for sharing your amazing work, sharing your amazing insights here. We really appreciate that you came to the first ever Campus Party Canada.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you next year.
Hopefully, I think we have a lot of things to share.
Yes, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank
Join
you.
me in thanking Patty here.
Merci.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you.
Okay, I can hardly believe that we're at the last keynote of the day, but I am so excited for our next guest. She's a 5-time world champion in competitive Counter-Strike, a longtime pro gaming icon. I'm sure you all have heard of Stephanie Miss Harvey, and she's now a director at CLG. She's been a game designer at Ubisoft Montreal. She's the founder of Eleve, a digital citizenship brand, and she runs an esports production company. Please joining me in welcoming the unbelievable Steph Harvey to the stage. Hi. I'm so happy to meet you.
Hi. Oh, it works.
I can do like a little.
Okay. There you go.
Welcome to Campus Party Canada. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Great.
You're here in real life.
I can't believe it. It's our first event since February or March 13, 2020.
Welcome. We're so lucky to have you.
Yes, because I said no until 2022, but I'm here.
Good. Wonderful. It's so nice to have you here. So you're a total legend in this gaming space. You've been in the esports world for 18 years and 7 years as a developer. But I wanted to start by asking you of some of your most recent projects.
Yeah.
Specifically, I hear now you're working at Madison Square Garden. So can you tell me a little bit about your role there and what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm currently a director of development at CLG. CLG is owned by Madison Square Garden. So for those not familiar with esports at all, a lot of the esports team and organization are owned by sports endeavor. So for people from Montreal, it's like the Canadians are owning also like an esports team. So I work closely with everyone at MSG in New York, and very closely actually. Like we actively work with the Knicks and the Rangers marketing team and development team, and everything that has to do with MSG sports, we're just the same for them.
Okay, great. And so what's like a day in the life there? I think about hockey games, but obviously we're talking esports. So what's a day-to-day like for you in this space?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because they're still very new to gaming, right? They bought CLG, I think, in 2018, so still very recent. I like to say that esports is dog years, so 7 years in esports, 7 years in the real world is like 1 year in esports. So for them, it's like something that they're taking their time with, but for us, it's like, hey, we've been at MSG for almost 4 years, like, let's change things. But I think the pandemic really, really helped us. It kind of put us on the same level. Everybody in New York had to work from home. We're located in LA, actually, our office. So it really allows us to be extremely flexible. But mainly my day-to-day is really a lot of meetings, a lot of pushing for things, a lot of trying to make a difference. That's why I'm a director in development, right? I'm trying not to sit on the success that we can have in esports, and I'm trying to find new ways, not necessarily to reinvent the wheels, but be better and push for, I would say, higher standards, especially in our industry.
Okay, I want to talk about some of those changes you're pushing for. I've spoken with you before, and I know very, very much that diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity is something that's close to your heart, and something that you've been really speaking out and advocating about for years. I'm curious, like maybe if you're taking a look back, what kind of progress you've seen, and then maybe can pivot to today and what kind of progress you're pushing for.
It's funny because we were just talking about this. You were talking about this like 10 minutes ago, but I think that the progress is unbelievable. I would say, again, I really think the pandemic changed our culture, and it's going to keep changing and evolving. But the conversation that I was having 15 years ago are finally kind of happening. Like my hope and my dream for gaming in general and tech was to be somewhere like where we are right now, where we can have the conversation about diversity and inclusivity that is just not anymore fan service or poster women in companies that become like the face of initiatives and whatnot, and we can really talk about changing the culture and pushing for a culture that is united in tech and gaming. And for me, it really is not important to have this conversation, but it's also important to have them because we want to be good people, right?
Yeah.
But it's also important to have them because too often we don't know. And by having this conversation, we discovered things that not only, we were not comfortable to talk about or comfortable jumping in because we're not from a certain ethnicity or we're not from a certain gender and whatnot. So putting yourself in uncomfortable places actually pushes you to understand, to learn, to welcome people. And before, like if you have a marketing agency or a marketing team in your company and they have diversity discussions and you don't do anything from within, from your culture, from within, you're missing the mark. And at some point, everybody's going to notice it because everybody is thinking about diversity. It's not just something that is trendy anymore. You really have to make an effort to change your company culture if you want to talk diversity and inclusivity.
Absolutely. And it starts with awareness and it starts with kind of cleaning your own house first.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like.
That's well said.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we already have some questions that are popping off. So if you don't mind, one of them is about diversity and inclusivity.
Let's go.
So someone is asking, what are the top 3 areas for conversation about the subject? What are the most important things we should be thinking about internally on our teams in this space?
So one thing I would say is obviously hiring diverse people, but that's something that most people know already, right?
Yeah.
Hire diverse. But I think it's important to hire diverse because when you're having conversation about culture within your company, and you are surrounded by people that look like you, what usually happens is kind of like it's a high five of we're great, you're great, we're doing great. Do you agree with me? Of course I agree with you. We're the same. We think the same. So nothing is changing, right? So you need people to actually challenge your beliefs. You need people to actually tell you, you know what, according to my values or just my personality, I don't fit in with what you're doing. Oh, so how could we improve it so that we both like it?
Yeah.
So that you, who are different, like it just as much as me, who is also different, because everybody's different, right? So I think that it starts with obviously hiring diverse people, but the thing about sometimes initiatives is that you hire diverse people and you think your job is done. Like, well, our company has 50% women. We're super diverse, right? But it doesn't mean because you have diversity in your company that you're doing the right things or you're doing it right. It's a start. You're having that conversation. You're doing an effort. But it really, for me, I like to say, you hold a lens. Your beautiful glasses. I'm gonna have to plug your beautiful glasses right now. It's like you buy these beautiful glasses, but the lens is like there's no lens, right?
Right.
So what's the purpose? You're not seeing anything better. You just look pretty, right?
Right.
But right now, they're functional as well, which is great because you put something on these lenses. So you take the diversity and inclusivity lens and you put it on for everything that you do. So from, yes, your hiring practices, but also the meals that you cook or the things that you provide, the holidays that you celebrate, the onboarding form where you ask if someone, how do they want to be named, what is their pronouns, but it's little things that instead of asking for people what's your gender, right, or how do you what's your name, but how do you like to be named? And it's a huge difference because it really shows that your company thinks about welcoming people for who they are instead of putting them into buckets.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, they want to be different, but they're not necessarily that open to talking about it. So by giving them a safe space to kind of express them about it is key.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes when you think about diversity numbers, it almost feels like you're ticking a box.
Yeah.
We've reached this percentage, but that doesn't actually say anything about your culture, doesn't say anything about retention. If people feel like they can be heard and seen for who they are, I'm totally hearing you.
And just to close on that, because it was a top 3, I just thought about something else. Everything that you do in the diversity and inclusivity space is going to be something you need to re-evaluate all the time.
Yes.
We're learning, we're progressing, things are changing rapidly, and so if you don't have a kind of safety net to recheck the things that you do every couple months, every at least 6 months, revisit your company culture and whatnot, you're probably missing out the boat, and you're probably gonna fail even if you were doing something right before.
Right, because anything that cannot be measured cannot be improved.
Oh, I
believe
like
that's
that
like
one.
a key,
Let me-
like business school 101.
Putting that in my brain.
Yeah.
Power.
So we're speaking to a younger, audience that are in university or are just starting their career. And I'm curious, we talked about what executives and companies can do, but what message do you have for the next generation of people in this space about, motivating them to also be the change that they want to see in these cultures?
When I was young, I felt like I didn't belong in the industry because I was someone that challenged things, that liked to learn and push boundaries. So when I was in a business office, I really was a distractor, right?
Yeah.
And for some people, that can be negative. So I encourage the next generation that inspires me more than my mentors to keep at it, to not be, I want to say, plateaued by the way that their elder is telling them to be, to find their own path and find their own inspiration and passion and vision. When I was a teenager, my job right now absolutely did not exist. I made a job out of my passion, and the amount of time I was on TV media and was told, but when are you going to get a real job, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or you can't just build a life out of video games. That doesn't make sense. And now it's kind of ridiculous to think back about that. So yeah, I just want to say they inspire me more than the people I work with. Like, the next generation is so impressive. Earlier we saw today these little girls who made the video game when they were in high school, and I was so jealous. I thought, I couldn't believe how far these girls are going to be and go, because I didn't have these opportunities, and we're here challenging things and talking about the future and whatnot, but they are in a generation where anything is possible. I was told anything was possible, but it was not.
Yeah.
Like, my mom was like, you can do anything, but it wasn't true.
But like, get a real job.
But now it's actually true, and it's mind-blowing.
That's wonderful. I kind of want to switch gears a little bit. And I agree, the young women who are on the stage were so impressive. And what struck me about them, and what strikes me about the gaming industry in general, is the sense of community building. And I think it's something that's been important to you over your career. And I'm curious what you've learned about sort of forming these close-knit communities, or building communities, or making people even feel like, back to diversity and inclusion, like they're part of a community. I'm curious about your insights there.
Yeah, I think community building is one of the most precious things that tech and gaming has that probably not a lot of other area of our world has. The closest thing I would say is obviously sports.
Yeah.
But there's still a disconnection between the athletes and the community. But in gaming and in tech, everybody's accessible, which is very unique, and it's all in real time. It's all about real time. It's all about being there, fear of missing out and whatnot, which can be negative, but and it's something that you build one person at a time.
Right.
And I always say that I won all of my friends and fans one person at a time. Years ago in a conference like today, like you and I, we're friends for life.
Yeah.
You know it. But it was because of events like that that we are able to connect and are able to grow and are able to make a difference, and you build that community one person at a time. And sometimes you have people that are not endemic from our industry who think it's either easy or think they can just throw money at a community and it's going to be built by himself. And I think it's a combination of a very fragile ecosystem that we don't necessarily have the answer yet of what exactly, how do you make the best community as possible? And I think that's what's so great and so unique, and why everyone can find a space in gaming, or a game they like, or a community where they belong to, even if they feel like an outcast, even if they feel like they don't belong, they'll find somewhere and someone within our communities to call it home. And that's kind of what I found when I was a teenager. And I'm getting super emotional right now, but in French,
that connection is so important when you're young too.
In French, you have a say. It's called mal de vivre.
Yeah.
And when I was a teenager, I had that. I still kind of have that, where there's no really good translation for it, and it didn't matter what I was doing. I didn't feel like I belonged, and then I met gaming, and it didn't matter who I was and whatnot. I just belonged.
Yeah.
And so
that is emotional. I love that. And I love that for you. And like, look at how far it's taken you. That's really a wonderful story. And such a good segue actually to this question that someone just put in here about, you know, what advice maybe do you have for parents on the right way to introduce video games to their
that's
kids?
A good one.
It is a good one.
You know, I am not a parent myself, so I'm going to say that everybody's unique. Everybody has their own experience, but I have a lot of advice from someone who is not a parent. I think that the most important thing is communicating with that person, your child, your brother, sister, your cousin, whoever, and making sure that that they are aware of that you are also there and you want to help them and you want to do and enjoy gaming in a responsible and safe way. I always like to say, you wouldn't send your kid play hockey. We're in Canada, so I always take the hockey example. You wouldn't send your kid to hockey and be like, you don't need a helmet. I'm not going to teach you how to skate. No referee, no coach. Have fun. Bye. Right? First of all, he needs skates. Second, probably a helmet, or else he's going to get injured.
Face guard.
You want him to have a coach because that's how you learn, you know, lessons about teamwork, about strategies, about how to get better and whatnot. So you don't send your kid play video games just like that. You support them. If you don't know anything about video games, you research, you do your homeworks, you make sure you understand what's the difference between healthy gaming practices and enthusiastic passion and something that can be harmful to your child. So what games can he play? What is it okay to let the child play a game like Grand Theft Auto, even if he's not 18? Because it can be okay, but if it's done in the right way and if it's done with communication with that kid.
Yeah.
So the best advice I would say is learn to get to know each other and understand your limits and build on these limits together so that they understand why it's important to sit great on a chair. And I'm going to give you one example that's going to like make so much sense you understand what I'm saying is like if your child wants to get better in the game and he wants to play for a long time, let's say he wants to play 3 hours, and you have that conversation with him to say, hey, after 1 hour of gaming, you're going to get worse and worse the more you play in the game that you play, unless you take that 10-minute break, unless you go get that water, stretch your leg, get back that blood flow into your body, resume the oxygen to your brain.
Right.
Distract your eyesight so you can get that energy again,
Right.
get that focus again, come back in the game, and you're going to be even better in the game. If you can get your kid to understand that, if I understood that when I was a teenager, I would have stood up every 45 minutes. I just lost. I'm going to kill it next. Let me do some jumping jack, stretch a little bit, and then go back in the game and kill it. So it's the kind of things that you need to understand why the purpose is not just for his health. It's actually also to get better in the game.
Perform better. Yeah, that's very cool. I feel like you have all of these tips and advice, and it leads me as a good segue to my next question. I understand that you're writing a book.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about the book?
Yeah, actually, I'm currently writing one book that's really more personal.
Okay.
In French, and it's gonna come out like within a couple months.
Oh,
So
wow.
That one is
Okay,
really
we
exciting.
gotta get in on
But that
this.
one is more like
Autobiographical?
well, kind of like like a pat to how I believe we can do anything, and no one should be like we're the only boundaries and the only kind of barriers to our own desires, kind of. But the other one is the one you probably want to talk about. It's one in English, and it's going to be a guide to cyber citizenship, right? And I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of it. If you have not heard of it, it's a concept that's really simple for me. It's cyber citizenship is the fact that we're all cyber citizens now. You and I and everybody that's here is a cyber citizen. If you have a phone or if you have internet, you're a cyber citizen. You have a cultural impact online. just the same way as you have as a citizen. And in being a citizen, you have learned to be a citizen since you were born, from going to school, kindergarten, your parents educating you, the laws, you can't go on a red light when you drive, like all these kind of things are made, and these pillars are made to put you in place so that you can become a contributor of society as a citizen and be self-sustainable when you're 18, and you can make a living and contribute positively to citizenship and to the society. So that's kind of what being a citizen here is, right? And then you had the layer of the internet that appeared, I don't know, 30 years ago, right? And then it's the Wild West. There's absolutely no pillars that support us to be good cyber citizen. We don't, our parents don't teach us how to interact online. The education system is not made up to support interactions between kids and whatnot. We don't know what's going on behind the screens. Cybersecurity is now one of the easiest way to break laws. We probably all broke laws online. We don't even know we did, and if we did, we were like, oh, there's no consequences. Who cares, you know? And all that kind of stuff makes you a really horrible cyber citizen. And
Right.
and for me, I'm writing this book because I want to raise awareness to our digital footprint and our cyber citizenship and how to become good cyber citizen, and cyber citizens that can have a positive impact on others while consuming and using the internet, but also for us.
Yeah.
Honestly, the amount of time that we've had a negative experience online, a lot of it is due to our poor cyber citizenship. And if that can be helped by just educating people, talking about this is why I started Elevate, like you mentioned at the top of this talk. And I just want to have these conversations, and I want to make sure that I light up a little light in the people's brain. Oh, I've never heard that term before. Or it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like, you know, the parent has to tell the kid, you know, that you need some skates and a helmet and whatever to play hockey, it kind of reminds me a little bit of this. You know, there probably are some pillars that we could all use in order to safely enjoy the world of the internet. We have a bunch more questions that just populated. One is not a question, but an hola from Ecuador. Someone from Ecuador is watching, so that's very cool.
Oh, yeah. I went to Ecuador for campus party.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in 2014.
Oh, wow.
So, hola, mi amigos de Ecuador.
A different time. We've got another question here that says, I'm not from the video game world and am represented more traditional industry, but what is your opinion in terms of creating innovation in a community?
Yes. Okay. So I think we're great at creating communities, but we're not that great at innovating and making sure that the communities are vibrant and positive, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think it's really easy for us gamers to create a community, but at some point there's some sort of gatekeeping as well that comes in, where it goes back a lot to like us being nerds and being kept from being nerds because we're not cool enough, and now we're kind of reproducing the same social patterns within our communities. So if you're not in, then people won't necessarily let you in, you know. So it's just kind of like, it's very, very interesting on the sociability aspect. But what I would say is, to create communities, I think it's a 360 approach where the platforms, so companies, developers like game devs, users, everyone is kind of in it for themselves, and no one is thinking necessarily about each other. And there's a lot of laziness of, we're not going to fix the internet, it's toxic anyway. So, you know, we'll do the bare minimum, like ban some people, and that's going to be kind of what we feel like we belong. But I think that we're lazy in our creativity when it comes to building safe spaces, when it comes to building safe tools, when it comes to mental health, especially in these communities, when it comes to support when someone from that community is in need, and all around, I think it's, like I said, it's the 360 laziness approach from, yes, the user, who are not really demanding the companies to do these kind of things, but also the companies. Like, for me, a company like obviously Facebook with a lot of the things that, well, Meta, with a lot of the things that are happening, or Twitter and whatnot, like the big platforms, they need to do more. And I'm sure they're doing a lot behind the scene, but in front, it's for me, it's not enough. There's no reason why I can't put my account as a safe space if I want it.
Yeah.
Why not? Like, why don't we create these safe space for our users? Why don't we take care of our users? Because at some point, it's not going to be about growing the user base anymore. It's about not only maintaining it, because there's only so much a company can grow. At some point, if everybody in the world is connected, we need to take care of these people so that they stay, and they stay in a healthy way, and they contribute positively to that experience. So I'm going to say the creativity is essentially there, that I think we're really behind compared to the speed of technology, for example.
Absolutely. I had a question here that I feel like relates, and so does, your work on digital citizenship. Who needs to be reading this book, or who needs to be hearing this message from you? Is it world leaders? Is it CEOs? I feel like students, are aware, but who are you trying to reach with this message?
That's a really good question. Everyone.
Yes. Anyone who has an internet connection, I bet.
Everyone. So yes, our government people, obviously our education systems, teachers, parents. I want to say a lot of the people on in companies, like you mentioned, the question mentioned CEOs and whatnot. I'm going to be doing lobbyists with that. I want to make sure that our electoral is aware of what's going on. Yes, there are things that are extremely important, like obviously healthcare and the environment, and I don't want to distract from that, but I want to make sure we also think about our cyber citizenship and our cyber communities, because we cannot disconnect anymore.
No.
There is no way you can just turn off the computer and forget about your computer problems, because it's not a thing anymore.
No.
We are constantly connected. Just the vaccination thing is the proof that we can't disconnect. Everybody needs their code on their phone, right?
Yeah.
Some people print it, but right? So that being said, it needs to be a priority for our elected people. It needs to be a priority for the people that have money, that can make a difference. So this is what I'm trying to target with this book. But obviously, I think parents would also learn, because I'm going to try to go to a level of like pushing my vision, but also explaining for people who are not in video games or not necessarily consumer of the internet as hardcore as I am. Maybe a little hardcore on the internet, that it can still make sense for them.
And the importance of it. Well, we're so lucky to have you as a lobbyist, I have to say. I have a question. We're talking about being connected and not being able to turn it off. Somebody is asking, how do you feel about the metaverse? Are you excited? Are you scared? Are you both? Or do you think it's a long way away? What's your sense on all this hype?
That's a very good question. I've tried to... When I saw the announcement and whatnot, I tried to. For me, it's unavoidable, right? I think things like that are gonna happen. I actually think we're a little slow on like the metaverse and just overall connecting things. I thought it would get there a little bit earlier, but yeah, it's inevitable. That being said, I don't think it should be unregulated. I don't think it should be left by itself. I think we need to take a close look at companies who can create misinformation, who can really change culture.
Yeah.
Right? And have a social impact on not only our politics, but our beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's what can be really scary, because before the internet was a place of free will and free speech and free thinking. But with companies like that, you are removing some of these pieces. It is no longer necessarily a place of free thinking, because we tailor your thoughts and tailor it to your behavior to reinforce things that we think will make you consume the things that we want you to consume. So that's where it gets really risky. And so again, that's why we need to talk about cyber citizenship, because we need regulation from our government. We need people that are aware of what's going on, that have their eyes on the impact it can have on the research. It shouldn't be left to companies to research the negative effect that algorithms on a Facebook can have in our lives. It should be done by independent firms. It should be done in a controlled way. So I'm not necessarily scared of the metaverse. What I'm scared is that our governments is so behind and so not in the conversation, and that we are not actively trying to be ahead of what the companies are doing. When you let the companies and the money takes the wheel of change and culture, that's when it can get really dangerous.
Okay, so it's you're looking at it through a cautionary kind of lens.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm excited for it, but I want it to be done well.
Right. And where do you see, I guess, the intersection of gaming and esports, you know, maybe not in the metaverse, but in the future development of our understanding and conversations and culture when it comes to technology? Like, what do you think would be the best outcome in your field particularly?
My dream video game company creates game for entertainment and creates on the side or at the same time creates games for purpose.
Okay.
So I think that game companies should support their dev and their talent to develop projects that are not necessarily made for money or popularity, but that can drive change in our population. So for example, you work on a game like Assassin's Creed, and then the next year, like, you know what, I want to take a break. I don't want to take a break from making games, but I'm done, like, making breaks for consumers and, like, as to make money and whatnot and be in that loop. I want to make a game that will change something in the space. For example, create a game for cancer kids that could make them do something and whatnot when they're at the hospital to connect with their family. I don't know. Like, so something that could make sense to them from their perspective, their experience. Create a game so that schools, for example, can teach cyber citizenship, and it's easy for teachers to pick it up, to implement it in their classes, and then move on. So, and then the year after, maybe I go back to Assassin's Creed, maybe I don't, maybe I do, whatever. But my goal and my dream, I think, as creator of change, especially in a city like Montreal, we should be challenging the way that we create a product so that we can also make a difference. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, totally. I want to come back to Montreal in a second, but I'm curious for those who are entering the space right now to, you know, create with purpose and to create the type of gaming world and esport world that you want to see. What tools do they need in their toolkit? Not just technical, but I'm curious also about the soft skills. I hate that word.
For like a developer that would
yeah. What do you think you should be developing to be able to show up in these spaces and make something with purpose?
I think that being ready to fail is super important.
Okay. Nice.
I think that failing is a big part of learning, and be flexible and iterate and change and be. So what I think you need to be prepared to sum it up is you need to create a structure when you start your project to know that most likely in the next milestone you might fail, and that is perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And learn from it, and like if you can create with failure something great, can you imagine what you can create when you succeed?
Yeah,
right?
when things go according to plan.
Yeah. So I've never really met a project that went right, but they still create wonderful, sometimes games, wonderful pieces, wonderful experiences, and so if you assume that you most likely will not, I want to say, get to where you want right now, and you are ready to iterate, you are ready to be flexible and change and be agile and whatnot, I think you're going to have even more success.
Okay, and probably more fun, right?
And more fun.
Nothing's linear,
and less disappointment.
Yeah.
And a higher ceiling, I think.
For sure. Not getting attached to the outcomes, but to the journey. That's a cliche, but I think it's true. I think.
It's super cliche because society doesn't teach you to expect that. Society tells you fail, like it's either you win or you lose.
Right. That's it.
I don't remember who said it, but for me, it's you win or you learn.
Yeah, I love that.
Because I won a lot in my career.
Yeah.
And then I didn't learn to lose.
Okay.
And then when I started losing, it was hard.
Okay.
Because you fall from a very high pedestal.
Yeah.
So I had to relearn how to win.
Yeah.
and understand what losing brought to me to be an even better winner, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's really good advice. I think that's really good advice, and not to be afraid, you know, to have to detour, to not succeed right away. I think that's great.
Yes, I'm someone in meetings that is always like, forget about the obstacles. Like, think about what you want to do, and let's try to start small and see where we can go from there.
Okay, we have a few more questions. I'm sorry, this might take us off a topic, but actually one that's related to this topic is someone has said, you know, losing is hard, but the lessons are great. What is the greatest lesson you learned from losing?
Well, the greatest lesson I learned from losing is to learn to lose.
Okay.
But I think that there's no better teacher than losing.
Yeah.
You learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about others as well. And you also need to learn when you lose that it's actually not that big of a deal.
Okay, yeah, life goes on.
But it's so hard on the moment. And so learning to kind of live with it and learning how to express that emotion and not keep it in is something that is still to this day really hard for me and that I need to work on all the time. Like if I have a presentation I thought could have been better, or if I had a meeting that I thought was kind of slow or counterproductive, like for me they're losses, and I feel disappointed sometimes, and they drive me a lot to learn how to get that negative energy and out in ways that work for me. So I think it's really unique to everyone, but I hope that answers his question.
Yeah,
it's a
for
little
sure.
vague, but
I think it's good to feel your feelings and process them and then let them go, and you'll live to see another day. That's wonderful.
My therapist always says, but what's the worst that will happen if you lose or if you don't succeed there? And it's always, well, I'll be disappointed. He's like, yeah, but like, that's it. And then I'm like, yeah, I guess that's it. He's like,
good perspective, hey?
Then you're fine.
Yeah,
no one will die if you lose.
That's awesome. Someone has a question here that says, you have a great track record with CS, but what is the game that you're spending time playing right now?
It's a good question. Oh my God. So I play a lot of Valorant. I play a lot of mobile games.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna lie, I have a couple of my friends are over there. I'm addicted to Satisfactory right now.
Okay.
It's a kind of a building processes chain kind of game where you extract resources and create stuff.
Cool.
So I'm pretty addicted to that at the moment. And I don't like to say the word addicted because a lot of people think it's a negative thing.
Right, yeah.
I'm still healthy, guys. But no, I would say that. Valorant, obviously. But right now there's a CSGO major happening, and I'm on stage, and I'm thinking about the CSGO major in my head. So I'm still a CS fan for life.
We know what you're going to be doing, later on. Great. Another question we have, and we still have a few more minutes if anybody wants to fill them in, but someone has written, esports has had amazing growth, but where do you feel the ambassadors like yourself need to spend more time to continue to promote and get the word out about this great space and this great environment?
Well, I think there's different paths, right, in esports. I didn't choose the path of a standard influencer that consumes, how can I say this? I didn't choose the path of like a full-on content creator influencer that wants to get hype people to buy their stuff and push for people to join in their streams and watch their videos. Like I kind of dab at it, but for me, I really took the path of building things and making a difference and having a purpose. And that does lead to me having sometimes less impact than those people, right? So for me, my desire is that the people who have a big impact in our industry, who are the big streamers at the moment and the content creators and the TikTok people and everybody, they're making a lot of money right now and they're famous and whatnot, but what's next for them?
Mm-hmm.
Because when they start potentially getting bored of that, or when they start to want to make a difference and whatnot, and I think that's where we're going to see the biggest drive in change, because it's no longer going to be about fame and clout, but it's going to be about different people finding their niche after that.
Yeah.
Right now, it's so new that it's still about fame and clout and followers and subscribers and kind of like the star system around it. And I think that's always going to stay, but we're going to see people like, the only person that comes to mind right now for me, it's Leonardo DiCaprio, but I don't think that's the best example. But like if you look at his Instagram, every post that he posts is about environment, is about nature, is about wanting to make a difference, and he doesn't post about himself ever.
Right.
And he's still a very successful actor that is getting paid a lot, and that is in very big movies. So I think we're gonna get there where some of our influencers are about making a difference and about really pushing the boundaries, and game companies will want to hire them because they are these people, not just because they have clout and followers and subscribers. And I think some people are kind of toward that path. I'm going to say an example like Dr. Lupo, who like raises a lot of money, millions every year for charities and whatnot. So he's kind of in that vein right now. But I want to see more of those people. I want to see these people starting to push to make the space better as well.
Yeah. So, working for a purpose and for a meaning and to, contribute to something that's bigger than your own self.
And I mean, it's okay that not everybody is doing it. I think there's a place for everyone, but I can't wait for others to join us,
Absolutely. I know we only have a couple minutes left. I wanted to touch on something you said about Montreal.
Yeah, let's
and
talk
I'm
about
curious, for those who are watching from elsewhere, why should they consider Quebec and consider Montreal a place to come and sort of go after those jobs that give them purpose and meaning?
Montreal for me, so I moved to Montreal in 2008. I'm from Quebec City. And obviously, there's a big rivalry between Quebec City and Montreal. It's kind of fading away now, but it was pretty dominant in the hockey years in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was raised. So I moved here with a lot of misconception that we're completely shattered about the city when you actually live in it. And I think that what makes Montreal so unique in the tech world is that so I've traveled, lived a little bit around the world, and there's this tech versus creativity balance and artistic world that is unmatched anywhere that I've been. I think the reason is we're a northern country. We're a country with snow.
Yeah.
And I do think it makes a huge difference because in the winter, we have to entertain ourselves indoors. We can't go to the beach. We can't think about, doing outdoors activity and whatnot. And I really think it creates this unique space where artists can grow, can think, can try to change things, but also tech, like nerdier people, can actually experience the life without getting judged and whatnot. And so it created this perfect balance where we have a lot of art schools and a lot of tech schools. And that is so unique. And when tech and art works together, we just watched a beautiful conference about Moment Factory. I think that a company like Moment Factory really expresses what Montreal is about. How do you merge two worlds that had nothing to do with each other 20 years ago and create these unique moments where talent in a city can flourish, can learn from them? A company like Moment Factory will have tons of employees that will all grow, create their own path, and eventually after 10 years in a company, maybe want to spawn a new company because they're thinking about this for the last 10 years and they want to create something and push it. And these people stay in Montreal.
Yeah.
These people continue to push the city, create that city culture that is multicultural. I always say that we speak Franglish or Eng French. I don't know what the other word is. And not in a way that sometimes we speak English, but sometimes we speak French. But we actually, in the same sentence, consume both languages, right? I have to force myself right now to speak English. And with my parents that don't speak English, I have to force myself to speak French.
Yeah.
I'm no longer just an English-French speaking person. I'm really like a multicultural facet. And to sum it up, Montreal for me is like I said, the perfect mix between art and tech. And when I was a kid, I was extremely tech and also extremely creative and artistic. And I don't know if I could have expressed that elsewhere in the world before it was cool.
Yeah, cool. That's very cool. It's a place to hibernate, to incubate, to ideate. It's like all these things, you know. I'm not looking forward to winter, but you kind of have made me.
We lift each other up. The city lifts each other up.
Yeah.
From the companies, the people that hire, the people that move here, the culture impact that festival have and whatnot. The fact that we don't die when winter comes.
Yeah.
And our brain
survive.
Our brain is extremely stimulated because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. So I want to spend the last bit of this time rolling out the red carpet for you. Can you tell us what you've got coming up, where we can follow you, how we can, watch out for your book and everything that you're doing?
Well, I'm everywhere, so obviously Miss Harvey everywhere. There's so much to talk about that I don't even know where to start. I'm just gonna say I'm working on great things with Elevate to talk about digital citizenship and push. Obviously the books, also the work that I do at CLG is really part of what I believe in. I'm trying to change things within the garden, but also within the community. And my door is always open for things like that, where I can spread the words about the things I do, and also learn from everybody here that I meet. So
great. Well, I learned a lot from you today. I'm sure everybody who is watching did as well. Thank you so much for coming to the first edition of Campus Party Canada. We really enjoyed having you. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You were great.
Okay. This was so fun. At stage left is perfect. Oh, my friends, I can't believe that our time together at Campus Party Canada 2021 has come to an end. I just want to say it's incredible. We had over 12,000 views in the past 3 days of the Campus Party Conference online. We had 175 questions coming from the audience, so thank you so much for engaging with us in this space. You made my job so much more fun. Thank you to our audiences who are watching out there from Canada, from the US, from Brazil, and from the UAE. You all tuned in, and we really appreciate it. This was such an amazing event. I feel full of inspiration right now, and I hope you do too. Thank you so much to our brilliant speakers sharing their big ideas with us about the future and all of the pathways that we can take in this space. Thank you to the audience who is here in real life. This is still a pandemic. We appreciate you showing up. Thank you to those who were watching online. Obviously, we couldn't do it without our partners, to the Government of Canada, Gouvernement de Québec, Ville de Montréal, Service Québec, Bell, Via Rail, Power Corp, Tourisme Montréal, our lovely host, the Palais de Congrès. Thank you so much for hosting us. To the Blockchain Research Institute, ULISM, Montreal International, and to our community and academic partners. We could not do it without you. And I just want to take a special moment as well to thank the team, the creative, resilient Campus Party team. Shouts to Team Numana, to the Campus Party HQ and MCI, to folks from ULISM. Thank you, Francois Borrelli, Giuliano, thank you so much, Giuliano Lissoni, Sylvie Taifo, Florian Sauge, my amazing co-host, Stephanie Martel, our showrunner, Sophia. We've got Alraj Isaacs, Asme, Scali, Hugo, Alize, Alicia, Alyssa, Stephanie, Mode, and our volunteers. We could not do this without you. We would also like to thank the teams at Expert Ease, Racine, and those who helped to start this Campus Party journey. You built such an incredible program and all poured your blood, sweat, and tears into this, and we really appreciate it. But this is not goodbye. Campus Party Canada will return to Montreal in 2022, so we're really looking forward to seeing you all here next year. So stay in touch with us. Follow Campus Party on all social media platforms, and watch the speakers you may have missed via YouTube. For myself, it's been such a sincere pleasure to be co-host of this event, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such an amazing crowd. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thanks again for coming. Merci, bonsoir.